Well, we might have kicked off the weekend yesterday on Sportswire Radio with pro wrestling legend C2K. We got in the thick of things earlier with Wildfire Nate Reese. The weekend is now really in full swing because it is the Friday Night Live Sportswire Radio show here on Sportswire Radio's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportnarium.com/player. And there is no better person than to kick things off for us here for tonight's show with our host of the Hockey Fan Chat. He is our resident wrestling analyst here for Sportswire Radio. Also dabbled a little bit in the world of professional wrestling for a brief period. We are talking about our head of the Sportswire Radio wrestling table. He is our tribal chief. He is our leader, Mr. Randy Dillon. And Randy, happy Friday, and how are you, my friend?
Tom, I'm doing good today. Happy Friday to you. Happy Good Friday for anyone who celebrates Easter over the weekend. A big holiday there. But man, what a week in professional wrestling it was, from where we ended on Sunday at WrestleMania to today pretty much.
I know. You know what? I was going to say, everybody was talking about this Triple H announcement, which I think I want to get into here for a second because everyone was kind of doom and gloom about it. But I actually kind of liked the announcement here. And I mean, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, maybe they haven't tuned into SmackDown yet. Obviously, we're going to have a draft here in a couple of weeks. And I mean, talk about Triple H, which I would have thought was going to open the show, but it was actually the six-man tag, which maybe we'll get into in a second, obviously with Gunther and Sheamus and their factions. But I mean, Triple H comes out middle of the show and announces we're going to have a draft, and talk about that for those that are listening here on Sportswire Radio Live.
The draft, I think, is a good thing coming up here because I think over the last, we really haven't had a draft, I think, since 2021, I think.
I want to say September 21,
Yeah,
I think.
and I think at this point it's good to have the draft here because it's time to get things up. I think some superstars need a switch, and then some superstar they have to change. For example, we see the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley, the SmackDown
Well, we
Women's
heard. Did you
Championship.
hear that? Did you hear when they came out that there was a little clue there that the Judgment Day, maybe we're seeing the end of days of them, no pun
Mhm.
intended.
No, exactly. What's going to happen to another group here, the Brawling Brutes? Are they going to kind of? I don't see them kind of splitting up, but that's another group. For example, what's going to happen to LOW, Latino World Order? And again, I don't expect these groups to break up, but these are just examples. I think Judgment Day is the prime group to really split ways, but Alpha Academy, I think, is a good one because we've seen Otis kind of going a different direction. Same with Chad Gable. So a lot of different things. I'm excited to see a lot of superstars actually get switched because I think some superstars would kind of, I think, benefit more being on Raw where they have a little bit more time than on SmackDown where they have less time. But I think the question going to be at this point, creatively, who's in charge, right? I think that's the big question going forward.
Well, I mean, who is in charge? Is it Vince McMahon? Is it Triple H? Is it the UFC even? I mean, who knows right now? I mean, should I even speculate at this point? I mean, I know you're obviously keeping a tab. I try as hard as I can not to read this stuff, but obviously everybody knows that the UFC and WWE are going to be partners here very, very soon. And I mean, has that impacted things, you think?
Oh, I definitely think it has because it's from what we sound like Vince is back in full control of WWE at this point, depending how much control he's going to have. From what I've read, he's not at the show tonight, but on Monday he was in charge of Raw. And let me tell you something, Tom, that was probably one of the worst Raws post Mania I've seen in a long time. I know the Raw after WrestleMania in 2021 and wasn't great, but that was, I think, more to do with the Thunderdome. You couldn't really get the crowd involved at that point, but that was a stinker on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, you had all this goodwill. Everybody was excited, but I kind of think it was almost as if with the main event on night two, where Cody doesn't win the title, that WWE kind of lost a lot of their momentum. And then obviously the news of WWE and UFC and them kind of merging here in the next few months. And then obviously Vince McMahon lurking, I think, for a lot of people. And then Raw itself. WWE really lost all that goodwill literally in a blink of an eye after night one. You think about it.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think a lot of people there's still a lot of frustration with Cody not winning the championship, but I was actually thinking about this
All right, go
after
ahead.
Raw, and if Cody would have won, who would have been his first challenger? Because Randy Orton's not healthy enough, AJ Styles not ready yet, Jay White's not coming. So
Well,
really,
Jay White did another promotion, which we'll get into in a minute.
exactly, which we'll probably get into later. But really, the only two legitimate opponents Cody could have had could have been Finn Balor or Seth Rollins, and I think he already worked with Seth Rollins, and Finn
Seth
Balor just
Rollins, he worked with too many times, like you
yeah.
said. Yeah.
So really, I think Cody starting off his run, I think it could have been detrimental for him to think, okay, who's really going to challenge the guy? Who is he really going to work with and get things rolling with? Because
Hmm.
I go back to Seth Rollins' feud in 20 when Seth Rollins was the champion in 2021 after he beat Brock. He had all this momentum, but they didn't know who he was going to face, and he faced AJ Styles in kind of a short feud, and then he went on some lackluster feud with Baron Corbin until he got his fight with Brock at SummerSlam. But it was really an underwhelming run, and I think the same thing, to be honest, could have happened with Cody.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it in terms of who could have been an opponent, I mean, I'll throw one out there which would have, in a way, sort of made sense, but maybe wouldn't have been believable. Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, Solo could have been one. I think could have worked long term, but I don't think he's ready yet. And where Cody keeps saying you're not
Well,
ready, so
there is one other one which sort of would have made sense, but they're going a different route with it. Brock Lesnar, who he's actually going to face. I mean, so hypothetically, could you have penciled in Brock Lesnar?
I wouldn't have penciled in Brock Lesnar there as early. I think Brock maybe could have been down the road. And the other thing is, did Brock want to work with Cody? I think that's the other thing because Brock is someone who he can pick who he work with, and I think the end of Raw was kind of a signal saying, "Why the heck did you put me with someone with Omos and you made me do this now?" I think that was him being a little frustrated with how things were going.
Well, who do you think is that? Is that Vince McMahon? Is that UFC? Is that who do you think did that? Because yeah, it was kind of a weird shotgun kind of thing where Brock all of a sudden is now with Cody. I mean, that's kind of a rather bizarre turn of events here.
Oh no, absolutely. From what I read, they were saying now this is all getting very interesting to figure out who did have the say here because the reports are coming out now saying, "Oh, Triple H had this plan for months that Brock was going to turn on Cody." I don't think Brock was ever in this picture till recently. Like I
Yeah, I
really
mean,
have,
Cody only came back at the Royal Rumble. This couldn't have been
yeah,
for months.
no, exactly. And we even look at how things are going early in the year. It looked like Brock was supposed to work more with Bobby Lashley or Bray Wyatt or someone, and that took a
Yeah,
weird
now
turn.
that I think we spoke about, and then Bray Wyatt, I guess, got injured, and then that
Yeah.
kind of took the whole thing out. So, I mean, again, if you read that, I find it hard to believe that this was the plan for months.
I know. I think I do believe the plan was for Roman to go over. I can
Mhm.
believe that much, but the fact where Brock kind of turned, I don't believe that. I think that has Vince's writing all over it. And you even see some of the angles kind of gave up, like that women's tag team match. Doesn't make sense that Raquel and Liv get the first match
I
where
was gonna
Shayna.
say that's another thing. Watching SmackDown tonight, now they're going to have the Raw Tag Title match on Monday, and that doesn't make any sense because, from my thought after watching WrestleMania, it was going to be Shayna and Ronda.
Oh, exactly. That doesn't make sense at all. So unless they're planning to get Shayna and Ronda a little bit more involved in the feud, and they can kind of face Raquel and Liv kind of right away, because I think the minute Becky and Lita drop the title, Lita's out of the tag team picture for sure. I would say that much.
I absolutely agree with you, and I have a couple of comments here. Let's get to them. And Skulls, the Soul Hunter, who of course we have his shirt we were wearing earlier today and also yesterday, says we need it in terms of the draft. Anthony Finkel, whose team Cody Rhodes all the way, calls Brock a backstabber, which I vehemently disagree with that. I mean, Brock is always about Brock. Brock don't owe nobody nothing. I mean, you got to be following this stuff, Anthony Finkel, a little bit more closely. Cody is a real winner in life. Well, he definitely is a real winner in life, but he does not hold that championship, which we spoke about quite a bit on Sunday after night two, where I mean that was the moment. And I mean, I was listening to one of our podcasts before we opened up here tonight on sportnarium.com/player, the sit down marks, and they were pretty much saying, well, if you're going to make the title change, Cody's going to do it in front of what, 15,000 versus 80,000? I mean, do you buy that? Where let's say hypothetically Cody does get this title at some point, which I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't know these storylines, nobody does, but let's say he wins it in an arena versus 15,000 versus 80,000. I mean, what do you say to something like that?
Because I was trying to think about this. Who, other than Mick Foley, who was the last superstar to really have that big reaction in a smaller event? The only one I could think of was CM Punk in 2011 when he beat John Cena and the famous kiss goodbye to Vince McMahon at the end of the match in WWE. But I think that was more of the perfect storm brewing there. Shawn Michaels kind of rings a bell to me in 2002 when he returned to be Triple H in the Chamber. But those were perfect scenarios. Shawn Michaels returned after so long, his second match back. CM Punk, hometown of Chicago. I don't see any other perfect. Now, from what I was hearing, and this makes sense, but it's going to be hard. They're going to try to build Cody up for next year Mania where they give him the rematch. But for 1 year, it works in the factor where Roman, he's going to be in and out, but how do you keep Cody that strong and make him even bigger? That's going to be the question, I think.
I would assume then, again, this is my assumption, that starts with a win over Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a battle with Lesnar definitely starts off. Now, does it make sense? It does make sense for him. Do I see him losing in Backlash and maybe winning at SummerSlam to get some of that momentum rolling again? Possibly. But we'll see. And then now the rumors were as well. We know the reports were Brock contracts was coming to an end. And usually Brock takes a hiatus at this point. So are we going to have to wait to see him face Cody until SummerSlam?
We'll certainly find out. I want to give a big shout out to our guest yesterday, the legendary C2K, the former Puerto Rican National World Heavyweight Champion, also RBW World Champion. Also get ready to return to the ring next weekend for our friends over at the RWA. Also may see him in some other places. And he says, hello, guys. Want to give a big shout out to C2K because our interview with him got something like 500 listeners. So a lot of people tuned in. So I really appreciate all the support. Certainly, we love C2K on Sportswire. But speaking of things that was bizarre, and I don't try to pay attention too much to wrestling Twitter and social media because I really do try to be impartial with this because, we do have a lot of wrestlers come on, Randy, and you know how that kind of works. You don't want to be too much of a brown noser. But I noticed no Drew McIntyre tonight. And I heard rumblings about something where Drew McIntyre was replaced at an upcoming meet and greet that he was supposed to be at. Then you kind of alluded to it last week. I was thinking about our conversation we had on Sportswire and about a contract here, and Gunther is replacing him at that meet and greet. And I have to ask you then, have we seen the end of Drew McIntyre in the WWE? Because I don't think I've ever heard something like that before where a wrestler gets pulled from a meet and greet just a few short days before it's supposed to take place, and we've seen no mention of him at all tonight. I mean, so what's going on with Drew McIntyre, Randy?
It could mean what I think is happening in the contract scenario for Drew has really gone south, and WWE doesn't want to put him on TV because they don't know what they're going to do with him. And I think you owe it to Drew as well, where you can't give him the Dean Ambrose situation where you're saying, okay, we're going to make this guy lose to a guy like Nia Jax. The only reason he's going to be around the Shield. I think you got to give him props for what he did during the COVID time in early 2020 and 2021, really carrying the company on his back, being at all those empty shows with no fans, Thunderdome, all that kind of stuff. I think if they don't believe they can get a deal signed with him, and I think the rumor he has till June or July, there's no point of having him on television, putting him in any stories.
Yeah, I mean, that's about, 90 days or so, less than 90 days. And you think about Drew McIntyre, and I've spoken about him so much because obviously you talked about the fact that he was a champion during the COVID era. And again, probably the most bizarre time in really sports history, wrestling history as well. And you defend a championship and win a championship in front of nobody. And I mean, that's certainly an accomplishment in itself in a lot of ways. But I mean, since he lost the title 2 years ago, we've been kind of stuck in this kind of, I guess, predicament here. I mean, he really hasn't gone kind of anywhere. It's almost like he's stuck in the mud almost, and with a car. And I also noticed Braun Strowman, another guy that was certainly a ballyhooed. Kind of to me, same thing. And we haven't seen him on SmackDown tonight. And I kind of wonder here what's going to happen with Drew McIntyre. And obviously, we'll definitely talk about it here on Sportswire Radio. But I also noticed here tonight they had this kind of Sami Zayn and Jey Uso moment, and then KO was kind of talking to him backstage about that. So I have to ask, I mean, what's going on then with the bloodline? I mean, are we seeing Sammy revisit things? I mean, it was kind of bizarre that he wanted this meeting. The next thing we know, we see KO basically have to be taken out of the building there, Randy. What's up with this now?
Well, I think we gotta remember the original Bloodline feud we thought we were gonna get down the road wasn't. It was building between Sami Zayn and Jey Uso before Roman kind of took over early this year, and it became that big. It all started with Jey Uso saying, "You ain't our blood. Why are you here? We don't want you here." And Roman keeps
Good
accepting and
point.
inviting him everywhere else. So I think yeah, it makes sense to kind of revisit that throne. I think that definitely this is something we have to see where how are you going to keep the bloodline story relevant for Roman as well? The crack now the foundation where the Usos are not in the good flavor of Roman Reigns and Heyman, where they're no longer champion. Solo Sikoa redeemed himself after 2 weeks almost losing to Cody Rhodes and really being the reason Roman retained. There's no Jimmy Uso here tonight, so I think this is something WWE's going to have to do. And but the question's going to be, can you keep this going for one? We know Roman's not going to be around all the time, so they got to keep that relevant. And I'm worried if Vince is the head of creative, can he do that? Because when the bloodline I felt last year until Sami Zayn came in, it was getting a little stale. Like it was
It
coming.
was. No, it was getting stale. Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%.
Sami Zayn, the injection of Sami Zayn and the little bit drama he added there in his comedy, I think really saved the bloodline from being done earlier than expected. And I don't know how they're going to keep this going for long term at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and we have Casey Jack Bradley, who's tuned in here once again. Of course, can never get enough of a wrestling fix here on Sports. Why I want to give him a big shout out. But I mean, I don't know. Roman one more year with the title. I mean, he's already got almost 3 in the bag. I mean, I agree that he's going to keep it for a while. Obviously, we spoke about the 1,000 days. I think that's going to be a big social media thing, and we know how much WWE loves that earned engagement, which is why I thought he was going to keep the title. But I mean, to go another year, I don't know. I don't know how fans buy into that, because there eventually becomes a point, especially in this day and age. If it was different 40 years ago, 50 years ago, certainly, maybe even during Hogan's run in the 80s, whatever time frame that was, all right, maybe it's fresh. But I don't think in a very fast food society with large amounts of basically consumption of all forms of social media that fans will believe somebody could take the title off them. That's just my take.
I think it also comes to the point where our fans going to get so restless of Roman where the fans are going to turn on him, I think, at this point, because he's getting the heat now, that heel, which is great, which it does propel Cody, but a year is a long time for this to continue without back and forth. Like, we go back to revisit John Cena versus The Rock. Everyone knew John Cena was going to face The Rock at WrestleMania 29, and no, I'm sorry, not everyone knew he was going to face The Rock at WrestleMania 28 after WrestleMania 27. That year, I think, was a very hard year for Cena in his character development, because he was in and out of the WWE picture. You really couldn't do anything long term with him. It was more like short term. Okay, we're going to keep you around, but but the closer it got to Mania, it was like, okay, we had to kind of get him out of the title picture.
Yeah,
At this
yeah, and
point.
they took a different detour with that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think, to me, the moment was you had Cody let him have it. The perfect storm moment. You had all this goodwill, all this momentum. Sure, Triple H tonight came out and talked about the record-setting gate and the social media views and everything else. But to me, I think right now there is a portion of that social media base, which is a big part of things, and certainly they have a big opinion that people are dissatisfied. And Raw wasn't very good. I mean, SmackDown's been better. I mean, SmackDown has been better, but I mean, certainly does not have the momentum. I mean, so I have to ask, and certainly thank you, Casey Jack Bradley. Shout out. He says, I love Sportswire. I tune in every time. He literally does because I see him at all times, all of our shows. But I mean, is Vince McMahon? I mean, I don't see. I don't know if I'm WWE, right, and UFC is going to merge into a company. How could I allow, with everything that's going on with Vince McMahon, from what we know out there with these sexual harassment issues and all this PR, that he just steps in here and I mean, is that the way to go, Randy? I mean, you know this stuff. You wrestled for a little bit. You got a sense of it. I mean, talk to me.
Yeah, that was a very strange move. I think the sale goes back to the sale because remember Vince McMahon was going to prevent the sale if he was not let back in. I think going to the sale, Vince wanted to kind of give the sale to someone who they kind of were going to put him back in control. Because I was looking at the chart for Endeavor, and they had like Vince McMahon, Tony Khan, and all these spots, but I didn't really see Paul Levesque, Triple H's face anywhere there. The one thing I wonder about this is they give Vince McMahon the reins for some time. Ratings go down, and I mean go down heavily quickly. Arena sales go down. Live shows go down. Merchandise somewhat goes down a bit. Did that force him out of the door? Because WWE before the sale, they were on a very high with Triple H. As much as there was
Meltzer spoke about that, by the way. Meltzer spoke that the last few months WWE has certainly been on a tear, but prior to that, in a way, they hadn't been. I mean, things were down, ratings were down, a number of different things were down. So that's a fair point.
Exactly. So I think if things go down quickly before SummerSlam, does that change their view to get Triple H full creative control? Because they say I don't think Vince has full creative control, but I think Vince has final creative control say. And from what I know, he changed the script on Raw. He didn't change much on SmackDown. So that's a good thing, and why we see SmackDown pretty good. So if things are going down where revenue, all that stuff, where they're losing money, then I think they might have to relook at that to say, okay, do we get Triple H back in? Because everything was going so well. As much as people were complaining, well, Raw wasn't as good, SmackDown wasn't as good. They weren't as good when Triple H first started, but they were still very good. Now I'm just looking right here at SmackDown. I see Matt.
You're looking at what I was looking at, kind of this whole standoff between Solo and Jay, and then it turns into where Jay beats up Sami Zayn there. Yeah, certainly they had to get another one of that third world tease, and we got the shocking return of Matt Riddle. I mean, that's a name here, Randy, that I didn't see that one coming. Matt Riddle is back. I mean, we have to almost talk about this for a minute here because Matt Riddle has saved Sami Zayn.
Yeah, no, I think Riddle kind of was the only thing I thought about it. If Orton and Styles weren't ready to go come Raw, Jay White not showing, it doesn't look like Braun.
Jay White, he showed up in a few minutes. We're getting to him.
Yeah, exactly.
He ain't showing up.
Braun Breaker seemed like he's still going to do some time in NXT. So Riddle was the only one you could kind of bring back as that big surprise. Now, the question is for Riddle is, what are you going to do with him? Like, it seemed like I thought he was going to maybe do something with The Miz, and kind of now it looks like he's intrigued himself back in the bloodline where he does have some history there. But some of these questions, it just long-term storytelling where what something Triple H has done great with. We've seen the storytelling with Gunther, the IC title, and Sheamus and Drew McIntyre leading up to Mania. The bloodline, Edge and Judgment Day, at a point, but Dom and Ray, how that went. The long-term storytelling now is going to be, I think, hugely effective, where fans are going to be like, wait, why is this decision happening? And a part of me saying, please, we're not going to get Austin Theory going to be the one beating Roman Reigns at this point because
Well,
we
did
know
I
Vince
think
was
I feel
hard
like
on
I
him.
said that at one point that he could be a world champion? I mean, that's the kind of Vince McMahon thing. If Vince McMahon's back in charge, you know how much he loved Austin Theory. That's even on screen. I mean,
Yeah.
he looks like the kind of guy in essential casting that they could go with if Vince McMahon's in charge. I don't know.
So
I don't know here, Randy Dillon, but that's the kind of guy I could see them going with.
So there's a lot of questions right now, and I guess we'll have to see how the ratings. I think the ratings are going to be a big indication. I think the draft. I think because we saw how Raw happened. Triple H came up saying, "Thank you, we're going to be around." A lot of people are saying it was kind of Triple H saying, "I enjoy. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but Vince is back. There's nothing I can do about it." A part of me I'm waiting for one promo for Triple H to come out and say Vince is back, but I'm not going down without a fight. I don't care.
I don't know. I mean, listen, you know what?
That's
I
more
guess
of a fantasy, let's say.
well, fantasy certainly would be, but I do think ultimately, realistically, in terms of the family will, is I'm sure that Mr. Levesque, or AKA Mr. Triple H, I'm sure is certainly hoping one day to get that cut. Not that he needs the money, but that significant real money with him, of course, and his wife, who, by the way, is Vince McMahon's daughter, Stephanie McMahon, in case anybody's been living under a rock for the past 25 years. But I have a couple of comments here because people love when we speak about wrestling, Randy Dillon. Casey Jack Bradley says Randy Orton will return eventually if Riddle is back. Well, he's back now, so that's certainly the
He's
question.
Orton not back. From what I read, his back is bugging him, and we got to remember Shawn Michaels missed 4 years with the broken back.
Oh,
So
you know what? And I still to this day was amazed that the run we got from Shawn Michaels, because I mean, I thought Shawn Michaels was never going to come back after WrestleMania 14.
and you got to remember, Randy Orton is much older and has much more wear and tear on his body
Excellent point. Yep.
than Shawn Michaels. So I still think we're in for it's still going to be 50-50 on if he does return at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point. As we are here on Sportswire Radio, speaking all things related here to SmackDown, AEW, WWE, WrestleMania, UFC, WWE, Endeavor, who knows what else on, and with our very, very good friend, Mr. Randy Dillon. You can follow Randy on Instagram and Twitter at Randy, DHILLON. He's also the co-host of the Hockey Fan Chat, which you can find here on sportnarium.com/player. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the man behind Sportswire Radio, which you can give a follow to on Facebook and YouTube at Sportswire Radio. I want to thank all the new subscribers. Got a lot of new subscribers of late. Also, we are on Facebook at Sports Report X if you want a case to follow that one of these days. Also, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. And my guest Sunday, Craven Rage, who's taking a back step from his feuds with Killer Rabbit, maybe C2K, and maybe even Skulls, talks about his own storyline for fantasy booking. Hi, guys. I think, this whole storyline. I think WWE is doing a Cena and Rock storyline where John Cena lost to Rock, and then you could have Cena be broken, then rebuild him back up to go on to redeem himself to face Rock. I think and believe that Cody Rhodes to have him face Brock and go to SummerSlam to dethrone Roman. Kind of off what you said, Randy Dillon, and talk about what Mr. Craven Rage has to say in terms of his response for his fantasy.
I think Craven Rage is absolutely right here. You tore down Cody at WrestleMania. You pretty much rolled over. You pretty much drove over him on Raw with what Lesnar did to him. So I think this is the best bet to go with Cody because I think Cody returned at the Rumble. He won the Rumble. He's had some matches against guys like Chad Gable and some others. Then he got a big win on Monday against Solo. And I listened to other people I follow on Twitter as well. They said Cody didn't really face any adversity leading up to this year.
Well, he was only here 2 months. He only was here 2 months.
Exactly. I look back, we look at Kofi Kingston WrestleMania when how much adversity he had to go through in that short period of time. Daniel Bryan and all the work he had to go through. You look back at Drew McIntyre, and his WrestleMania win against Brock, and look at the there wasn't adversity in that particular feud, but leading up to that, the adversity. Like
But I think if you look at like all-time WWE champions, you think about Stone Cold, where he had to deal with Mr. McMahon from Survivor Series to WrestleMania 15. I think about even the likes of a Rey Mysterio, how he won the Royal Rumble to get the title shot. I think about even Eddie Guerrero. They talked about the adversity in his career, and I think about even the likes of, let's say, Mick Foley, who you spoke about. I mean, you can go down. There's a list of wrestlers where they had kind of adversity to kind of get to that moment where they climbed them out. They talked about, remember Edge the first time he won the championship. They talked about obviously growing up and basically watching shows and being a child. And there wasn't Jeff Hardy. And but basically Cody comes in, enters the Rumble, wins the Rumble. We don't see him on the following pay-per-view. He comes out a certain way and kind of tells Sammy to believe in himself. And he didn't really beat anybody. He didn't beat anybody to win the Rumble, really, or didn't beat anybody to get to that point. So there is that point to be made.
Yeah. No, exactly. And then going back to the Eddie point, Eddie Guerrero, again, one of the only people who win the title get that big reaction from a crowd in a smaller crowd. So I think for
Cody, very small crowd compared to WrestleMania.
It can be done, but it has to be done right with how long the story is. Even when John Cena lost The Rock and waited that whole year to face The Rock at that next year Mania, they had some problems because they had to first start him off with a feud with Lesnar, lose, and then what? They had a 3-month feud with him with John, 2-3 month feud with him with John Laurinaitis, which was really embarrassing. And but
another guy, by the way, who's gotten into some trouble, I hear.
Yeah, but then I get how the ups and downs, the flows of that year, and then his battle with Punk, and thankfully Punk had the record at that setting title record at that point, which really was able to kind of put him the pinnacle where the people think, okay, they were building up for another Cena versus Rock pay-per-view. So it's going to be tough because we know Roman's going to get there easy, but how can you make it believable for Cody to really get there? That's the thing I question.
All right, Casey Jack Bradley says here, before I move on to some AEW thoughts, I think a couple of people I would like to get pushes for are Johnny Gargano and Xavier Woods. Johnny Gargano is always an interesting guy.
A big one if Vince is in charge.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, I mean, if you believe what you read on social media about the dollars and cents about this deal between WWE and UFC, I mean, some people say they might have to kind of rearrange their rosters. I don't know. Certainly guys that were brought back like Johnny Gargano would be a name at the list. But yeah, I don't know if he gets maybe the spotlight. Xavier Woods is always around. I mean, Xavier Woods to me, I think, is probably at the point of his career where maybe he's maybe in a role of kind of helping other wrestlers. We saw the thing between him and LA Knight. We're going to see that next week. So, I mean, I kind of think Xavier Woods at New Day at this point would be kind of more of helping the other wrestlers. So I don't really know what kind of push he would get. Casey also says, like I said before in the previous interview, it's all which was with Wildfire Nate Reese. If you can make a good story, does it matter if someone wins or loses? No, I agree with you on that. I definitely think that wins and losses in wrestling doesn't mean as much as what it means in sports, because you can certainly help paint a picture and help that wrestler also. Craven says, I think that's why they had Brock go heel, so Cody can really have some adversity to overcome. Yeah, I mean, maybe. But I want to talk about AEW for a couple of minutes for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, Randy, I kept hearing about Jay White. Jay White's coming. He's coming. Whether he's coming to WrestleMania, he's coming Monday. Who's going to answer the open challenge to Bobby Lashley if they had that? And yet, I saw him on Dynamite this Wednesday. And I guess maybe Tony Khan got a minor victory because we see Jay White. We then also see Nigel McGuinness in AEW kind of, I think, filled William Regal's role, which I spoke about on earlier show with certainly Casey Jack was a part of. I mean, so Jay White, what happened?
Sometimes one man's miss is another man's opportunity, which I will get into a little bit. But
I'll get into that.
For Jay White, I think it was always between WWE and AEW. I think it wasn't kind of, he was more win to WWE. I think it was ultimately going to come down to his decision. I think for him, the decision probably to go to AEW was probably done, I think personally, a little bit earlier. It wasn't just a big surprise out of nowhere, which everyone acted like it was. I think he made the decision to go to AEW. I think one, if with the sale person, I think WWE may have dropped the ball during the sale where the sale became more of a focus in signing Jay White. I think the rumors of you look at Jay White, he's not a big physical guy. He's a very
No,
talented guy,
no.
but if the rumors are true for Vince McMahon coming back, what are his opportunities in WWE getting that push and cut or being put to the side? So I think he's gonna run the deck with AEW where he has maybe a little bit experience with when AEW was with AEW and TNA had their thing back in 2021 and he made an appearance in Impact. So I think but the thing that I worry about Jay White is you got Adam Cole now who's returned. MJF is on a roll who still needs a new contract. Blackpool Combat doing some great work. Does he get lost in the shuffle somehow? Like other guys, like a Keith Lee, like a Rich Swerve, where they come in, get the big debuts, are hot for a few weeks, but then just kind of just disappear.
But I would also, but see, and I see your point because we spoke about this on Sportswire, and I've even said it. I felt a lot of guys at AEW had signed. It was almost like, okay, they signed him, but then what do they do with him? But I think at this point, if you were to go to WWE, I mean, would it be any better for you? I mean, I could even argue if this doesn't work out for Cody Rhodes, I mean, wouldn't he have been better? I mean, we're not going to go there yet, but in a couple of months, I might be able to ask that question to you. If this goes haywire with Cody Rhodes, was it better for him to have stayed in a company he created? I mean, so I could argue that for Jay White, he sees WWE. If he sees McMahon in charge, if you believe this stuff, why would he go there? Maybe he's better to gamble in AEW.
Well, I think as well with AEW, the other thing as well, the Bullet Club faction also played a big part where Omega, the Young Bucks are there, and they're still there. We know their contracts are expiring, but they're still there to a point, so they still have some leeway. The one thing I just want to mention about Cody is I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Vince is going to bury him." Triple H. If you watch the Stone Cold podcast, his interviews with others, he's always said, "I never went to WWE. WWE came to me." So I think in some way Cody's going to get that push because WWE had to go to him to say, "Hey, we want you here." Now going back to AEW for just a second, the other thing where I said one man missed opportunity, another man opportunity. Let's talk about how good an episode Dynamite was, and the news of they're going to be going to Williamson Stadium in August for All Out.
We spoke about that earlier on Sportswire. I mean, certainly, Randy, you've been reading my notes here, I guess. Maybe you've been watching the show earlier today, but I think this is a monumental thing. I know everybody's focused on the deal with WWE and sort of the stuff and the chatter with McMahon, but I really think, especially as you know, Randy, we have a huge wrestling audience outside of the United States, and we interview a lot of wrestlers from the UK, and I really think that this is a huge victory for UK professional wrestling, and especially for a lot of those companies. What's going to happen is when AEW comes there in August for All Out, they're going to have a trickle down effect where you're going to see that residuals. You're going to see where that's going to trickle down to a lot of those companies that we work with on Sportswire. And I really think that this is a huge, huge victory and a huge milestone, I think, for professional wrestling in Europe outside the United States, because you're seeing now that companies like AEW and WWE, obviously with Money in the Bank, but you're seeing now that these companies are now coming finally to places in Europe, and I think this is a monumental victory for British and European professional wrestling as a whole. That's what I think.
It is huge. I have a friend who's from the UK, and he said they've been waiting for an event, a big event like this, for so long since SummerSlam. Because we saw last year at Clash of the Castle in Cardiff how hot that place was. The one thing I'm wondering, and I don't know if they can hit 100,000 fans. I think they can get close to 60 to 80. I just think, is there enough time to advertise this event? Because I think tickets are going to go on sale pretty soon here. The event's in maybe 3-4 months, let's say.
Okay, so let's map it out. Today's April 7th, right?
Yeah.
So let's say AEW does it, let's say, third week in August, let's say, because I'm pretty sure All Out's are
Usually
usually that.
the long weekend, the Labor Day long weekend, All Out is.
All right,
I
so
think
let's
the
say,
27th of August, they said that the plan is.
all right, so we got to the end of August. The biggest gate they've had for attendance is what? 16,000, eighteen
Yeah.
thousand. Now, this is obviously a bigger event. Can they do it?
It's
I don't know.
impossible.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope they do. I hope they get 1 million people to show up. I think it's great, especially for our wrestling things. In terms of advertising, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think that's a question we might have to ask going forward. But I do think that they're going to try. I definitely think they're going to definitely give it a shot.
The one other thing is where WWE. Now I know I might be saying something here, but WWE did so well for Clash of the Castle was they had UK European stars. You had Sheamus, Drew
You have
McIntyre,
Gunther. Yep. Drew
Gunther,
McIntyre.
Finn
Becky
Balor,
Lynch. Yep.
Becky Lynch.
Finn Balor. Yep.
You had a lot of international stars. AEW, other than now Jay White, Cesaro, maybe a few others.
Tony Storm. You could throw Tony Storm in there.
It's
Soraya. The Knight family is massive in England. The Knight family.
But I feel they don't have enough stars to get attention for them to kind of put on that card.
Jericho?
Jericho is a big name. They're definitely a big name, but it can help. Now, this is actually going to be a very interesting question. Does this give CM Punk to come back in the door? Because he'll definitely draw people to that stadium.
Oh, I think CM Punk. If CM Punk is there, this is going to be a question I think we're going to be asking each other for the next still several weeks. If CM Punk is there, I'd say, yeah, I'd even throw it out there, and I don't know if that's the plan or not, but, if Sting was going to go, wouldn't Sting maybe last match at All Out? Would that do something like that? Because Sting is Sting. Sting is one of the biggest superstars around. Would Sting sell those tickets, you think? Let's say if it's advertised as maybe one of his last matches, something like that, or what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think Sting definitely will sell some more tickets, but you mentioned it to me as well. CM Punk had been that company draw for.
He's the one draw that they have that when he's on a show, you think about highest ratings in history, highest gates, it's CM Punk. He is the one guy that they have with the true box office firepower. He's the one guy they've got.
And that's where I think if you really do want to, like the 100,000, that's going to be a stretch. I think 60 to 80,000 they can, between 60 to 80,000 they can hit. If they can hit 70 to 80,000, I think that's a win for them long term, because that's still a lot of fans. The goal would probably be to sell out, but you still need people to sell out those tickets to those casual wrestling fans.
Yeah, you look at it, MJF's the champion. MJF, and God bless him, local guy here in New York, but I don't know if he's the guy. You do have Blackpool Combat Club. I don't know if they're essentially quite the household names. I do think Jericho would help. I think Sting, if you got Sting, I think Sting would definitely help. I do personally think Soraya, because of the Knight family. The Knight family, you have to remember, her family's name is very big out there. I think she would help. And I think CM Punk, if you're going to go that route, I think he would certainly give you the box office draw of what you're looking for. I think CM Punk, to me, that if you're going to bring him back,
no, they're definitely saying. And the one thing I kind of noticed with AEW is when Vince was in charge a few years ago, because Vince was in charge before Triple H took over, AEW did a lot better because you compare it to the product what WWE was putting on. WWE product for the last year and a half when Vince was in charge, it wasn't the greatest. And I think that would give AEW an advantage because they were actually able to put on a little bit better of a product.
AEW's had some they've had some great shows. Great Dynamites, and at times they've had some great pay-per-views. So AEW, I've always enjoyed their product at times, maybe more so than WWE. Not to say that I hate WWE, but I think AEW certainly had that advantage, no question.
But when Triple H took over, WWE product became very good. And then there started becoming some question with AEW product because I think they elevated their game and AEW had to elevate. So I think, is it really an opportunity for AEW to not only get back in the run, but to push themselves ahead of the game. Because if Triple H does take over, you know you have to elevate their game. And let's not forget, the All-In fiasco didn't help anything at their point either.
No question, and certainly that is a fair point to be made here. I just want to recap. We got about 10 more minutes with Randy and myself. We're going to continue to talk a little more wrestling. I might ask you a few thoughts on the NHL playoff race actually in a second. I do want to get your opinion on that. Then I'll have the Sportswire radio team talk the rest of the world in sports. But Casey Jack Bradley says, I'll be curious in what's happening with Kenny Omega and the Blackpool Combat Club. I do think Don Callis is using Kenny or planning to turn on Kenny. Yeah, that's an interesting point. You want to talk about that for a second? Where do you think we go there, Dex? That is a good question.
Yeah, it seems like they are building the Blackpool Combat going against the Elite with Hangman Adam Page. Like, you go back to that episode of Dynamite a few weeks ago where
last week,
Callis
I think.
looked like he was hit, and then Omega was saying, why did Adam Page hit him? I think there's still questions on the Elite contract, what's going to happen with them. But I think if Vince McMahon is charged, I don't think those questions are going to be too heavy at this point. But yeah, I don't know if Don Callis turning on Omega to go to Blackpool Combat is the right move unless he puts himself with maybe Claudio, because Don Callis' mic skill when he was with Omega was very good. John Moxley and Bryan Danielson mic skills are very good at this point. For as a group, they don't need someone to kind
They
of
don't need a
them.
mouthpiece.
Exactly. I think for an individual like Claudio, I think that could maybe help him elevate his game, because he's always been such a talented wrestler, but sometimes his promos we haven't seen the best when he was with Cesaro.
Well, I hate to make the comparison, and I'm going to get again make clear here. I'm not saying that they're two the same people, but that was Chris Benoit's always biggest problem was Chris Benoit in the ring was basically the holy grail. Mike's skills were meh. I mean, so that's certainly seeing Don Callis can certainly talk a broom off its head. But I have to ask you here a couple of things here first. The NHL, because we haven't spoke NHL with you in a while. Connor McDavid's getting closer to 150 points. I see.
Oh yeah, he is very close there. I just checking the stats here right now because
148, right? Was going into today 148 points.
Well, no, he's gonna hit 150 if he's at 140. He's hitting 150 tomorrow. He's playing the San Jose Sharks. So tomorrow he's gonna hit 150, something that hasn't been done probably since the late 90s. Like I think Jaromir.
Yeah, mid 90s, 1996. I think we're talking about was the last time.
Yager, the last player to do this, and it's just an incredible feat. It's something we thought we would never see, especially how good the game has gotten. The players, the defense, the goalies, how everything's so systematic now. No longer the big run and gun slug defenseman trying to slug someone else. All the different tactics. It's just something incredible. I don't think we would ever see. I know it's something that might not be talked as much if he was out in an East Coast market like a New York.
Oh, if it was in New York, forget about it. You'd have the New York Post, the New York Daily News. You'd have Newsday here. You'd have the New York Times. Everybody and their sister writing about that. And Justin Gianelli is going to join us here in a few minutes. Says Oilers have 3 100-point players.
That's
which is
incredible. There.
That's there was some seasons, right? You didn't get a 100-point player in the early 2010s. Yeah. If you had listen, I remember when if you had 90 points, it was like wow. I remember when the Islanders had John Tavares and he was averaging just about a point a game. It was like wow, he's in the top, almost the top 10 in scoring. Now you look at what Edmonton has done. It's just extremely fascinating here, and obviously we'll certainly see what happens as the playoffs are getting ready here. But I do have to ask you here first in the Western Conference, are the Winnipeg Jets basically folding here and allowing the Calgary Flames to kind of sneak into the playoffs here? Because I asked this question a month ago, and you said, don't worry about it. Winnipeg will make it based off the calculations. But, I mean, is Calgary going to sneak in here? I mean, Winnipeg maybe hangs on because they've got a game in hand, but they're both tied at this point. I mean, before I get to the Eastern Conference, what do you say to that?
I'm going to say this weekend it could determine who's going to get that final wild card spot between Calgary, Winnipeg, and Nashville. Calgary has a huge game against Vancouver tomorrow. Winnipeg plays Nashville, and I think Nashville's in Calgary upcoming as well. So these next 2 games for Nashville are huge. If you can somehow get 2 wins and the other team gets 2 losses, you'll somehow be able to fight in. The Winnipeg Jets, I really don't know what's going on with that team. They were in a very comfortable situation, but how things have gone now and how they've struggled at late, they can't put up goals. They've only been really able to beat those teams below them. In a game on Wednesday against Calgary where you had a chance and you look at some of Calgary goal scorers. I think it was Zadorov who scored a big goal for them. Lucic who scored another big goal for them. It's like the Calgary doesn't have the biggest goal scorers like the and
No, it's not last year's Calgary team where you had super
exactly
firepower.
it is struggling. So the Winnipeg Jets, they're still in control of their destiny, but they got to win tomorrow. If
I
they
agree
don't
with you
win,
on that. And Nashville's fascinating to me also because that was a team that sold off players, and I mean, they've played well enough to be able to also be right there. It almost mimics the Eastern Conference, where you got the three teams for that spot. Well, it's two spots in the East and one in the West. I mean, so fascinating there with Nashville, Calgary, and Winnipeg. So, who do you think makes it there of the three? Before I ask you in the Eastern Conference,
this is
flip
very
a coin,
hard.
right? Flip a Canadian coin, right?
I'm gonna go with the Winnipeg Jets. They're gonna find a way to hang on. Calgary, it's just in such a Jekyll and Hyde season where one game they play so great, the next game they struggle. They blow a huge opportunity against Chicago last Tuesday, where they would have won that game, one of the worst teams in the league. You would have been in that wild card draw and you had control, but now you need some help. But Nashville, I saw their schedule. They have an awful schedule going
Well,
down the
Nashville
road.
and Calgary play Monday night.
Yeah,
That very well might decide it. So you have to think the loser of that game is out. No.
exactly. So I'm gonna say the Jets are somehow gonna be able to pull off. I think Connor Hellebuck has enough to steal the Jets a few wins here, some points there.
All right, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, again, Calgary or Nashville is out based off that game Monday. Then the Eastern Conference. Conversely, I had asked you about the Florida Panthers throughout these last several weeks, and I had thought they had on paper, they had the team, they had the star power, and they certainly underachieved. And I mean, they're playing the best hockey of maybe anybody right now in the Eastern Conference. I think they have 7 consecutive wins in a row, and I mean, they've put themselves in the first wild card spot. In between them, the Islanders and the Penguins, and the Islanders get a much-needed win against Tampa, which Tampa, to me, I think has struggled mightily of late, especially 11 goals given up in 2 nights back-to-back against the Rangers and a very offensively starved Islander team. So who do you think makes it out of there? Because that, to me, is another, I don't know.
That again is a
Two
tough.
teams for 3 spots, so 2 of them get in. But I mean, what do you think? I would have to think Florida gets one of these spots.
Florida, they play Washington tomorrow, and the Capitals have just been horrific as of late. So I think Florida can pull it up. I'm just trying to see who the Islanders play.
Islanders have
They
Flyers,
have Philly.
Capitals,
That's a
Canadians.
nice game there. And then the Penguins tomorrow, they play Detroit, which I'm still going to think the Islanders are going to hang on. And I'm actually going to say the Florida Panthers are going to sneak in, and the Penguins are going to be out because the Pittsburgh Penguins have, in the last few weeks, they've played with fire where they won the big games where they needed to win, but in a chance where they could have gone ahead and be in a nice, comfortable position with a 3 to 4 point lead, they blew many of those games. I think Matthew Tkachuk is carrying them back. The one thing with Florida I worry about their goaltending were no Sergei Bobrovsky, no Spencer Knight, Alex Lyon leading them at this point. And he's played good, but for the Penguins, I don't know if they can get it together at this point where they've had chances and they've blown it.
Well, I mean, the schedule is okay for Pittsburgh. You've got Columbus, you've got Detroit left. I mean, so you've got games on your schedule you can win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's gonna come down to that. In Florida, their schedule coming up here for those that are listening and watching. I mean, they've got the Capitals, they've got Toronto and Carolina. So I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, I think the Islanders have maybe the best schedule of the 3, but I mean, Florida's playing the best. And I would also say, conversely, playing the teams sometimes that have nothing to play for, like the Detroits, the Montreals, the Philadelphias, they're dangerous. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, these 2 spots for 3, it's a little more clear in the East, unlike in the West. But I mean, gun to my head, I'm going to probably say Florida and the Islanders because I do think the Islanders need to just get 2 of the 3,
Mhm.
which I think is doable. And I think Florida can get 2 of their 3 because I think they've got Toronto at home. I think they can win that game. I don't think they win Carolina, but I think they can win tomorrow and against Toronto. So I'm going to say Florida and the Islanders make it. Watch me be totally wrong here, but that's going to be my prediction.
The one thing with Florida, with Toronto and Carolina, both teams know they're going to playoffs, and
Nothing to
I
play
think,
for.
and Toronto knows as well. They're in second. Tampa ain't catching them. They're not catching Boston. These next few games, do you rest guys, kind of go it easy, kind of play your full bench? It's same with Carolina, where I know Jersey's still on their Jersey's only one. Well, Carolina might be a little bit of a harder one because Jersey's still on their heel with 1 point, but come that game, it could change where they clinch.
Fair enough here, and obviously I'm going to wind up here going to closing thoughts here. And before we do that, before I bring on the rest of the guys, Jack Hughes has 95 points, 1 away from the Devils' record, which I believe is Patrick Elliott. So fascinating. The Devils have never had a 100-point scorer in their history, yet they have 3 Stanley Cup championships. And then Chris Pizzea also says, can Toronto get past in the first round here? So that's something here I guess we'll watch, right?
We'll
Toronto's
definitely talk about that, Chris, coming up in the week. So I don't think
absolute.
I
Yeah,
don't know if
God.
it's gonna be possible, but if Tampa look banged up right now, so Toronto might have their chance.
Toronto, you know what? Toronto might. This might be their time. Their perfect storm. 19 years without winning a playoff series. That is so fascinating. 19 years for that franchise. So you know that city is going to be starved for something here. So obviously a lot to get into here. But Randy, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. We certainly ran the gauntlet here once again. Such a lot of good stuff going on here in the world of wrestling. A little bit of hockey we dabbled in. So I want to give you the floor. You're certainly rocking both with the Kraken shirt and the championship there, the spinner belt, and want to give you the floor. And anything else you want to plug, share, say, fire away.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure to come out here. Always enjoy chatting sports with you. On a wrestling point, it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen, especially with free agents at this point. People's upcoming contract, if Vince is back, because I think superstars or wrestlers who thought they were going to jump ship to W with Triple H now in charge, they might be thinking twice. And I think people thinking they were going to stay long term with Triple H in charge.
Well, I think one of them was just Drew McIntyre. I think that's to be the most bizarre thing. It was no SmackDown tonight, Drew McIntyre. I think that's the perfect example of that.
Could be a game. It could be a flu. Maybe he came down with an illness or something. Couldn't go. Like, I just think we got to throw out there, but it definitely makes an interesting situation with an AEW standpoint. Going to be interesting what's going to happen. I see Brad Weiss going. I just want to ask Brad this quickly. The Knicks are making the playoffs, though. I want to get your opinion on that.
Oh, come on, Randy. You had to start my night with the Knicks. I got to talk about the Knicks. I will say I was just watching.
People are excited. Steven Saperstein, of all people, is actually up past his bedtime, and he sees the brute force Brad Weiss. He's always asking about you. I got to be honest. The only guy he really cares for on Sportswire is you. I mean, he could care less about me and anybody else. I mean, he's like, he looks at the brute force. He's like, wow, it's the brute force.
Well, what's up, Steve? What's going on? I appreciate the love. I'm here. That's right. I'm here. I'm ready. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to beat John Gonzalez down tonight. All right. Specifically John Gonzalez. Okay. But Randy, to answer your question, all right, I'm going to have to say it later in the show. I'm going to predict this series against Cleveland. But I don't normally use this word in regards to the Knicks, but I'm confident in their ability, all right, to potentially beat the Cavaliers in the first.
It's funny you said that, Brad, because I thought about you this morning. I'm out and about, and it's 6:30 in the morning. There's a guy I see, one of our listeners, and we were talking about the Mets. And I see that the Mets guy's got the gear on a second. I said, I'm going to give you something of goods to talk about. And he goes, what is that? I said, all I'm going to say is the New York Knicks. And he stopped me. He said, you know what? For the first time in a long time, he actually had faith in the Knicks. I wouldn't say confidence, but he had faith in them.
I'm going to get more specific later. I don't want to put everything out now because we got a lot to talk about in the NBA today. But
yes, we do. A lot to talk about the NBA and college basketball because we got a bunch of announcements at the end of the show.
Oh, for sure. But I'll say this, Randy. I am confident. The Knicks did lose today, but they fought hard without 2 of their starters. So they did fight hard, and I think that Cleveland is a good matchup for them, and I think that they will give it a great series. But I don't want to give away all my predictions,
Whoa.
but I will say I am confident in these Knicks, and I can't believe I'm saying.
You know, Randy Dillon, you certainly used a wrestling tactic there. You certainly used a Ric Flair-like trick there, dirtiest player in the game, by poking the bear and the brute force Brad Weiss. So certainly, boy, you have teased a lot of people here for that. So I certainly know it's going to be a very lively show. And the brute force, by the way, is back from Florida. Unfortunately, Brad, you didn't bring the weather back with us because today it's like freezing. I mean, I'm going to get to the Mets in a second, by the way.
I got something to say about the weather, but you want me to say it now or later?
No, because Rob Marasa's got a contest that he's got to announce.
I got a lot to say about that. Hold that thought.
We're going to do that. But, Randy, anything else you want to share before I move on?
Just NHL, before I go this weekend, I think we'll decide the final few spots and how big the games are in the East. I think the Penguins lose a game tomorrow. I think they're pretty much at the end of their fate. And in the West, like I said, the Winnipeg Jets, they just got to win.
It comes down to, listen, the West it's about Monday. It's Nashville and Calgary. One of those teams is eliminated. That's what that's going to come down to.
Exactly. And then tomorrow in the East, it all depends on who can keep winning. But if you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Twitter at Randy Dillon, DHILLON for Dillon. Tom, always a pleasure. Great to see everyone. Have a great night.
Absolutely, Randy, and certainly good to be with you. And we're joined by the rest of the Sportswire team. Now, Rob Maraska, I know you got this contest that you're dying to announce the winner for, and I know people want to hear it. So for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, tell us who's won your latest contest.
I got 2 winners tonight, double contests. So the first winner of the Aaron Judge Tops Now first at-bat of the season home run is Robert Silva from Salem, Massachusetts. That's right. Not from New York, but from Massachusetts. So a Massachusetts guy won the Aaron Judge card.
Now, does this guy know Patrick Trotty? Is that what this is here? He knows Patrick Trotty?
Maybe.
Hey, it just shows that it's a fair contest. So congratulations to Robert.
Well, what if Anthony Finkel didn't win? I noticed Anthony Finkel didn't win, so I guess it's okay, right?
It was too late.
That's his life story.
Robert's Twitter, it's at bdad617, and he's a new listener also, which is cool. And that card will go out sometime next week. It's on its way from Tops. And I also have the Senga winner of the Tops Now first major league game and win. And what a game that was. After the first inning he really got into the groove, and it was a great game. We have Brian Becker of Hempstead, New York.
Yeah, that's in Nassau County. Hempstead is right by the Coliseum. Brad don't live too far from Hempstead, actually.
Yep, and he's the winner of that Senga Tops Now.
Now, Brad, did you know this individual because of the Hempstead ties? Did you maybe plant a winner here so you could maybe inadvertently get the car? Is this how this worked out here, or am I missing something?
You see, no. Don't confuse me for John Gonzalez type tactics. I don't do that type of stuff, right?
Well, Anthony Finkel would be the guy because he knows people in Hempstead. That I can be assured, but I had to ask you because I don't have Anthony Finkel with us. So I had to.
No, I do know people in Hempstead, but I did not by any means do anything to ridicule.
All right, so this guy you have no connection to
in this contest.
All right.
You may know him though.
Oh, that I know of. Now, repeat this winner again from Hempstead because I got the guy from Salem. But
Brian Becker, and on Twitter he's at he's at Becker B34. That's Becker B34. Congratulations to both our winners. We had so many people enter this. It was hard to go through it today, but I found the 2 winners. And thanks, guys, for retweeting everything. We had so many people enter this. You can't believe it.
Okay, all right. Well, congratulations to those individuals. I always like to say I purposely don't enter in these contests because I like to see somebody else win and somebody enjoy. So congrats to those winners. They'll get those cards, I would imagine, sometime at the end of next week based on shipping and different calculations. But obviously, I'm joined here by a lot of Met people, but I'm actually going to take a different take on the New York Mets for a second because I got a bone to pick with the New York Mets. It's not actually about on the field, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second. But, yesterday it was a big talk about a game that the Mets could have had opening day, right? It was a beautiful day in New York. It had to have been 80 degrees, and I'm in shorts and a T-shirt, and I'm saying to myself, why did they postpone a game? And then I'm looking at the weather throughout the day, and then what was it? Not first raindrop was 9:30 p.m., especially now with this pitch clock. And, I got to ask, and I see the Brute Force Brad White, and I'm glad, Brad, that we're on the same page on this one when it comes to the New York Mets. Might be a first on Sportswire in a long time. But, I mean, Brad, as somebody like yourself, who is a very, very distinguished athlete, a gamer, a coach, I mean, this was an abomination. You could not have asked for a better opening day to have been played yesterday in New York, especially at Citi Field. And I want to know, what gives?
Well, first of all, Tom, thank you for stealing my thunder. That's exactly what I was going to talk about.
Nice. You are welcome, because you got to get used to it on Monday show. We're together twice this week coming up, by the way, so this could be the start of us stealing each other's notes.
That's right. All right, listen, we're doing that now. But I am absolutely livid and furious about this because I was one of those that was affected big time because I was supposed to be at the game yesterday. All right. And I was at home, right? I put my schedule all around the Mets game. All right. I didn't schedule any, basketball activities or anything like that I could have been doing. Okay. And the Mets, all this nonsense, by the way, I don't want to go against all meteorologists, but these people, I mean, some of them get paid to lie. I mean, it is ridiculous. I mean,
it's embarrassing, completely embarrassing.
The fact that they're talking about this storm, right? Not even a hurricane, but a storm that's going to take over New York City and cause this game to be postponed. And even looking at the weather days in advance, it was clear that the rain was not even going to start till 4:00. And it turns out, Tom Bryce, that the rain never even did start.
It didn't a raindrop until 9:30. So you're telling me you couldn't have played that game?
So, I was just absolutely livid about this. I couldn't go to the game today, and I had a ticket, and I had to give it away. I mean, I was very angry about this because what couldn't you ask for a better opening day than a 79-degree day on April 6th, right, where it was sunny, hot, and people had instead go to this cold, frigid game today, right? That wasn't as nice. That was cloudy. All right. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that the fact that the Mets,
Justin Gianelli, but this was an abomination.
Yeah, at least Justin got to go to the game. I did not get to go to the game because I had other obligations. So I am pissed off, Tom Bryce. Ashamed to all those weather people. I am not blaming Steve Cohen for this because it's not his fault. Okay, it's all those damn weather people that persuaded him to cancel the game.
Wait. Time out. Why do you not blame Steve Cohen? He's the owner of the team.
Because he was persuaded to do it. It wasn't
See, he's the chief executive, though. The executive is the guy that signs off on. That's where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because, I mean, clearly there was no rain in the forecast. There was no nothing. And they
there was rain in the forecast. But the thing is that they didn't read into it enough. And then, again, you say there's rain in the forecast, and then it doesn't rain. What the heck is that? That is an absolute disaster of a meteorology job that I've ever seen, especially for an opening day. That is horrible, and it cost me an opening day, and I am pissed because I wanted to be there.
I even think, before I get to the guys coming in here, I think about 1996 Yankees-Royals opening day, and they played, and it was snowing. I think about other opening days that the Mets have had, and they played, and it was 35, 40 degrees, whatever it is, right? And then you have a beautiful day. As beautiful a day you're going to get in New York on April the 6th, and we think it's going to rain, and we don't play, and I mean, Billy McInerney, you're back with us here for the first time in a while. I mean, you obviously study some of this stuff. I mean, what did you make of this? Because I personally think this was an abomination. The Mets should have played. They could have played 4 o'clock even, 3 o'clock, whatever time it was. Even got in it before the rain came because, not for nothing, it's spring recess, so kids are off from school. If you're taking kids, you could have went to the ballpark. It's Passover, so that means people actually could have went to the ballpark early because they have nothing going on. It's Holy Thursday, Good Friday, so almost everybody's off, basically. Everybody's playing hooky. So to me, you could have moved around the schedules. But what do you think of this, Billy? What's your perspective?
I think they obviously got it wrong. They easily could have played Thursday. In general, I do appreciate that they try to call games early under Steve Cohen because, if people, show up out of the ballpark trying to get through city traffic, trying to get through, I mean, anybody who's driven Citi Field knows it's impossible to get there by roads. It's a nightmare. So I get calling it early, but, I mean, they called it like 24 hours in advance. I can't help but think there was a little bit of an effort to try and, take advantage of this bad weather report and get their bullpen an extra day of rest that they desperately needed. So I look at this from the on-field perspective. I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship being played there, and I think, the baseball office would probably kind of suggested to Steve Cohen that, hey, if we can get this game pushed today, we're going to have a lot more relievers available. We might not have to make any roster moves. Guys are going to be fresher. We'll buy an extra day of rest in for McGill, which you kind of needed after that brutal first start. We'll get, some of our players that are coming back from injuries, Marte, Nimmo off their feet. So I think the weather was an excuse for something that the Mets thought was going to help them put a better team on the field for opening day than they were able to do Thursday.
I did hear some of that on WFAN this morning. There was some talk about that. I still, to me, am not happy about it. Chris, obviously, you cover this stuff also with the Talking Rivals, and I remember as a kid, 1996, Yankees-Royals opening day. I still remember it like yesterday. I remember seeing the snowflakes come down, and they were playing.
Andy
And I look at it. Yep, and I look at it, and the Mets didn't even play in as beautiful a day as you could have ever had in New York. I don't even remember if we had 79, 80 degrees, whatever the Bruford said, on April the 6th, and they didn't play the game. I mean, again, it was holiday week here. Everybody was playing hooky. If you thought it was going to rain, move the time up. I just think, to me, that this was an embarrassment. That's just my opinion.
I thought what was odd was how quickly they called it too, right? It was during the afternoon. Why don't you wait till at least the nighttime? Maybe get an updated weather report.
I would have thought 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, right? Was maybe something like that. Hey, we have a better idea of the forecast.
Yeah, that's what I would have
7 o'clock, okay, we were supposed to get a drop. Then they kept pushing it back, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And it was 9
made no sense to me.
Raindrops.
I agree. And this brings up, I know you guys are not going to agree with me, but I've said it since the beginning, like 2 decades ago when these new stadiums started to pop up. MLB should have said, listen, we got to start getting like retractable domes or something on these stadiums, because then we would never have these problems. Baseball can't play in the rain, right? Or the heavy rain. They can play, but if you put the retractable dome on, you leave it open when it's good weather. When it's bad, you close it, and we could still have a game. There's no rainouts. Fans could, like Brad, takes the day off from work. Boom, he's got it scheduled. He doesn't have to worry about something happening like this.
Well, there was originally supposed to be retractable roofs for the new stadiums, and then I'm not sure what happened with that, where it didn't happen. But
I think the cost was the
what happened with that was
money.
I think what happened with that was I think Giuliani passed it, and then Bloomberg got into office, and he changed like his mind.
Basically what it is. It's New York City. They could do it in other cities, but because of the cost of New York City, with the unions, with everything going on, it's so much more money to do it here than to do it in Florida, and that's what the problem.
Well, I think that's a big part of it.
Minnesota never did it. That was nuts, not having one in Minnesota. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, I think another big example was Olympic Stadium, Montreal, right? We always talk about Big O. I mean, that was the place you had it, and that's one example of a place that had a retractable roof. And I mean, certainly Minnesota would have been a place to have it. But I mean, I'll get to Rob in a second. But I mean, Justin, you were there. I mean, obviously you were the beneficiary of this. But I mean, I just think, to me, the Mets got this one wrong.
Well, all right. So I took the day off of work for Thursday, and and fortunately, because the Mets didn't jerk me around, they called it so early. I literally popped a text to my boss. I said, "Hey, can I come in tomorrow and flip out Friday?" No problem. So I was able to go to the game today. I do appreciate their efforts on calling it early, because I'd rather you call it early than wait and wait and wait, and then everybody's in the ballpark. It really does make for a mess. Listen, did they get it wrong? They did. It was a gorgeous day on Thursday, but I'm not going to be on. I'm of the opinion that I can live with something like this. I'd rather them bag a game early than bag it too late. And you know what? Billy's right. I think they were strategic about this. I think they were like, we don't usually have this happen because we either start at home or if you've seen it most years, the Mets usually open the season with like the Nationals or something. So like they're
Yeah,
playing,
it's
you get
usually.
an off day after the opening day. The Mets had no off days. They played 7 straight days. You don't really get that. So I think it was a little bit of gamesmanship, but I also too I appreciate them calling the game too early as opposed to too late.
I'm going to come back to Brad on this in a side point, but I want to bring in Rob Moroska for a second. I want to shout out Joey Bostrom, who says, "Good evening, gentlemen. They could have played baseball last night. It was ridiculous." Yeah, I totally agree. But I mean, Rob Moroska, you've been a guy that's been at a lot of these opening days. I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, 30 opening days in a row until my injuries. So I've sat through everything. And you know what? I think, there might have been a little part of this gamemanship thing, the bullpen after that Milwaukee series. And listen, they never start the season with 8 games in a row. Okay. Never. That was ridiculous. The schedule was ridiculous. So I think it could go both ways. They definitely should have played yesterday. They should have waited till at least nighttime, midnight, the next morning to announce it.
I think to me, you had plenty of time. Why rush to, hey, we're going to cancel the game?
It was beautiful. I know people who were supposed to go and they couldn't get off of work. Like Justin got off of work. So I just think it was a bad call. And we could blame Mr. G, too, for his weather forecast.
A lot of these people you could blame. I mean, whether it's Sam Champion, Mr. G, is Nick Gregory still around? I mean, we'll go up and down the list of these meteorologists, even the ones I might like to look at. But I mean, in terms of them all, they all got it wrong. And Brad, I want to ask you with a different take, because obviously you've been a player, you've been a coach, but I think of you more as a player in terms of the competitive side, being a college basketball player. We've even seen our Golden Eagles the last couple of years have some games postponed for different reasons. But I mean, if you're in that locker room, that clubhouse, more to say, I mean, how do you feel about something like this? You happy? You want the day off? You want to go out there and compete? Walk me through that from the shoes of a player with something like this.
Yeah, well, you're talking to a player that really is very much schedule based, and I was a guy who always wanted to.
You are very schedule based. You're very schedule based even now.
I am very much, and I hate when things change. I hate when I'm not told things in advance, which is, listen, to the point of everybody, right? The fact that the Mets did say it early in the, give it 24 hours was a good thing, but not in this case, because once again, I'll repeat it again. I know I'm not a meteorologist, okay? I'm not a weather genius, although at this point, Tom, I'm actually considering a career change because maybe I should be a meteorologist to start lying, and I could, lie on TV and, be
Oh,
pretty.
you know what? I mean, if it helps you, maybe get you more success out there. I mean, hey.
Listen, to get real here, I mean, I'm very, like I said, very scheduled based. So, when the schedule gets changed, I'm not really that big of a fan of it as a player. I want to compete, and I'm, getting ready to compete. The Mets knew they had to play on Thursday. So for me, I would have been ready. I would have been jacked up to play on Thursday because it's our opening day at our home stadium. Of course, I would have been ready to play that game. I know, and to everybody's point, they're correct with the bullpen and all the other things, obviously getting swept, not a great series in Milwaukee. Sure, maybe an off day would help.
Are you saying if the Mets had won in Milwaukee on Wednesday, we're playing? Is that what you're trying to say just there? Just you said the Mets got swept in Milwaukee.
I'm not saying that, but what I am saying, and you know what, the other part of this, Tom Bryce, especially as a player, is that when you do lose a few games, the best thing to do is to go out there and try to win the next day and just move on instead of having a day off to think about it, right? Maybe go back. And that's my perspective on it. But once again, there are a lot of factors. I'm the type of player, Tom, that does not want it postponed. I want the game to stay where it's supposed to be. And again, by the way, and I'll just talk about me for a second. I'll make this personal. All right. I like warmer weather for games, okay? So I don't care whether it's supposed to rain, especially with the forecast that was there. It was supposed to be extremely hot on Thursday. You think the Mets players were going to, rather play in the colder Friday weather than the warmer Thursday weather? I think they would have rather played on Thursday. That's just me But again,
I
there's a lot
100%
that goes
agree with you. Because players want to listen when you're going up there to bat. You don't want to hit in that colder weather. That ball's
no,
heavier, and your
no.
legs get wobbly
Especially,
and running.
especially the Mets. I mean, they just came from Miami. I was just there. Okay, I know how hot it was. Okay, Milwaukee. To Chris's point, another dome, right? Not a cold. This is the first time they're playing in a little bit of a shiver cold in a while. So I don't think anybody was excited for that. They probably would have rather played Thursday. And to Chris's point, by the way, I can't agree with him more. They need to get a lot more domes on these stadiums. It was great for me in Miami to know that I was guaranteed to see that game on that day because I knew, even though it was raining, by the way, the day I went to the game, I knew I was going to go because there's a dome. So I know I'm getting that game.
I think it's a fair point, and I think it's always a conversation we've had before I get to a few more comments on Sportswire Radio that playing baseball in the Northeast up until really the 1st of May. Yeah, I would even say the middle of May because New York weather, I mean, it ain't really good until the middle of May. I mean, these next 30, 40 days, you're going to get, listen, the end of the week was 75 degrees. Tomorrow it's 50 degrees. You have no idea. So, I mean, those are some fair points. First, let's get to Anthony Finkel, who I don't know why he's tuning in if he's watching the new Super Mario Brothers movie. You should be watching, which I think I'm on my way to seeing sometime in the middle of this week because I'm on my first break in quite a while. He says, time like hope is an illusion. Well, I mean, that may be so. I don't know what the reference is to. I mean, I do think of the Hootie and the Blowfish song Time, but that's nowhere near that. Also, for you, Brad, this individual who you might have heard of, John Gonzalez from the Sports Authorities Group, wants to say, did anyone see the pic of James Dolan rubbing suntan lotion on the Brute Miami Beach? Certainly not the same as when, if I can say this live on Sportswire, was it when Ben Affleck was rubbing certain things on Jennifer Lopez years ago out in the boats on the beach? But that's a different take, and I certainly wouldn't have blamed Mr. Affleck for that if he was doing that. But Brad, is that true here with James Dolan and yourself?
I gotta say this right now. We give John Gonzalez way too much time to think about these things that he's going to make up for the next
Well,
week.
you did give him time but you gave him time because you posted a photo of yourself basically in that kind of element, though. You did.
Why should I? I was in Miami. I was enjoying myself. So listen, I mean, this guy every week has some sort of new made-up story, right? That comes out of the bloom. Whether it's from my coaching with, when I had a coach about Herrick's, he comes up with something with Herrick's. Next week he comes up with something else that's going on in my life. Now he's going to mess with Miami. No, James Dolan wasn't there, and no one was rubbing nothing, all right? So I don't know what he's talking about, but good job, John Gonzalez. This is the best you got this week. All right, good job.
Do you think I should ask this question with Jesse Winter and Gordon Scheuer on Monday and Thursday? Do you think that this should be the question I should open up with when we get those distinctions?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Just
Oh, my God. Anyway, we'll get to James Dolan later. You'll hear enough about him later.
All right, so we'll come back to some of that. We got to off the field. I want to talk about the Yankees first because Chris is here with us, and the Yankees kind of had a mixed bag playing in Baltimore here. Got off to a slow start, come back, take the lead. Baltimore does win. And I mean, Chris, give me your feelings right now on the Yankees. Week that was. I mean, kind of a mixed bag. Strong start, but kind of faltered here a little bit with a loss in Baltimore. But I think overall still good start for the team. And give me your thoughts right now on where the Yankees are before I ask the other guys.
Yeah, the Yankees have won, that they won their first two series, right? Two games to three, both won. So they looked all right. Today, it's a little frustrating. Schmidt started. He's probably not going to be in the rotation much longer. I mean, this is two starts where he's been a little rough. But the bullpen really killed this game for them again at the end.
Yep.
Like you said, they took the lead, and then Baltimore came back and scored the 3 runs off the bullpen at the end. So, but I'm not worried about it. It's only 7-8 games in right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned because you got guys coming back from injury, right? You got Rodon coming back in a couple of weeks, and then Sevy, right around that time or a little bit later. So that'll solidify the rotation. And then the bullpen, you know what? You're going to have Trevino coming back later on, and you got Canely, hopefully not too far away. So hopefully things work out that way. I'm more worried about the lineup because the roster, excuse me, as it is, it doesn't feel right now. Like it's definitely going to be changing in the next couple of months. Hicks is becoming a problem. He's just dead weight.
What else is new? I mean, his entire run is just 1 year. What else is
Yeah.
new?
I mean, today was a great example of why Hicks is a problem on the team. They pinch hit for Frenchie Cordero today.
Yes, I saw that
He's
with
a
the
lefty,
home run, right?
Lefty on lefty. So they pinched hit for him, but they used IKF over Hicks to pinch hit for him. That kind of shows you that Hicks is at the bottom of the, he's at the bottom of the barrel right now. If IKF is getting pinch hit opportunities over you, you're at the bottom. So something's got to change. They're going to have to eat his contract because nobody's going to want Hicks, obviously, or else they would have got rid of him already. So something's got to change in that direction. Volpe's fine. I know he's struggling a little bit, but when you listen to some of these scouts, they've said whenever he's moved up in the ranks from A to AA to AAA, he struggled at first, and then he goes right. Then he's fine. So he's going to struggle a little bit. He's a kid. He's a rookie. Nobody. If anybody thought he was going to hit 300 from day one, that's a little nuts. So he was going to struggle a little bit, but I look at it this way. This team is going to be a team in transition over the next month or so with guys coming back from injury and guys getting, either traded away or cut or whatever. So it's going to be a different team in a couple of months. That's my point. Like in June or July, this is going to be a different team, just like the Mets. The Mets are going to go through some changes this year. They're going to see what's working, what's not working, and make a big move. I still believe that. So, but I still feel pretty good about the Yankees. I'm not concerned yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early. I mean, you really can't get on a team for being 4-3 and, certain guys. I mean, lineup, obviously, Judge has been great. Torres has been great. Rest of the other guys, I mean, Stanton's hit a couple of home runs. So it's still early, and Baltimore still is a good ball club as well. I think, Justin, I listened to your show, and you talked about how you thought they'd be a little bit over, I think, 82 or 83 wins. I think that's kind of a fair statement here. And before I get to Billy, John Gonzalez has an interesting comment, which I kind of thought about. How about the 3 former Mets hitting homers in Chicago yesterday? Flores, Conforto, and Davis. Yeah, J.D. Davis, Wilmer Flores, and Michael Conforto. Kind of almost a reboot, I guess, of like 2019 or 2018, whatever it might be. So that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I did Brad shaking his head. We'll get to that, I'm sure, in a few minutes. But Billy, I mean, Yankees, obviously 4-3, sort of kind of middle of the road. Everybody's kind of bunched up, but it's still early. But Yankees do get a loss today. But I think kind of still okay week for them, and certainly some good things you like from the team. But it is a team in transition. I totally agree. And give me your thoughts on this Yankee team so far, very early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really got a chance to watch much of the Yankees. I haven't gotten much of the Mets as I wanted to, but it's early. I think they're still trying to figure out roles for guys. I think ultimately they probably want to get Oswaldo Cabrera more work in the infield. I think he's played almost exclusively the outfield. There's so much in transition, like Chris said. They've had injuries. They have a handful of guys who have been injury prone throughout their career. A few guys that they might be better off having on the injury list at this point, like Aaron Hicks, even Josh Donaldson. It's so they have. I think similar to the Mets offensively, they have a couple of guys who really power the offense, and then the bottom of their order is something that they need to either get more production of, either from the guys in the lineup, or find guys who are not currently on the roster and get production from them. Mets are in the same boat. It's eerily similar watching the two teams, and both of them have pitching depth being tested right now with injuries. Both of them are kind of trying to figure out their closer role for different reasons, and that's obviously had that injury to Edwin Diaz. So I see a lot of similarities between the two teams right now, really, in kind of how the season starts, where they need to improve, where the question marks are. Can they get healthy? Can they figure out the bottom of the lineup? That sort of stuff.
Best off, I think that's obviously a lot of teams right now. And I mean, for you, Justin, obviously Yankees, to me, I think the big story for me has been to the fact that Garrett Cole has been lights out early in these 2 starts. He has been great. I think Stanton has got off to a good start. So has Torres. But what's your thoughts right now on this Yankee team early on in the season?
I mean, listen, they're off to a pretty good start. I mean, they won the 2 out of 3 against the Giants, took 2 out of 3 against the Phillies, and the Phillies, their pitching has been brutal to start the year. But except for today they got a nice W for their home opener. But the Yankees are fine. I mean, their pitching, yes, took a lot of hits in spring training in terms of injuries, and you're running guys out there like Johnny Brito, Clark Schmidt, Domingo Germán. When you should be having Luis Severino, Carlos Rodon, guys like that. So, yeah, they're trying to tread water right now. But the only problem I see with the Yankees is they might only be treading water early on, and they're just hoping that soon enough you get Carlos Rodon back. Okay, then things maybe could take off with the pitching, right? The AL East is just going to be so good this year that I just think that it's tough to get off to a mediocre start. And their injuries are one of the reasons why I don't think the Yankees will win the division this year. So I mean they'll win plenty of games, but with having Toronto in the division and Baltimore being so much more improved, so much so that I think the Orioles make the playoffs this year. I do. I think they'll sneak in as the last wild card. And Tampa's off to a tremendous start.
Tampa's been off to a historic start so far.
Yeah, even though I do see some major regression in their game. I do think they'll fall back to the pack and be around a 500 team. The Yankees don't have it easy, and I think that especially playing their first division game, by playing the Orioles today, they just, even though you play less games than before, it's like 13 or something instead of 19. You gotta really be strong against your division.
Absolutely. That's where if you go 8-5, 9-4, that could really make the difference. And before I get to Rob Maraska here, Joseph Bostrom says Yankees will be okay. Guys will come back from injury. Bullpen did kill us today. Hopefully we can take the next two in Baltimore, which goes to the point. You got to win these series, especially these divisional matchups. It almost is like in the NHL when you play those division games against your opponents. You got to take those points. So fair points here. Rob Maraska, Yankees obviously off to an okay start. I think like everybody else, kind of around this 3-4, 3-3, 4-3 bubble, which is fine right now. But I do think there are some positives. Bullpen might not be one of those positives, but I see Cole, I see Stanton. I see, obviously, Torres off to strong starts. Cordero hits a home run today. But impressions on the Yankees here early on in the season?
Yeah, Cole's looking like the ace that he is. I'm not worried about the Yankees. They're 4-3 start. You know what, though? Baltimore is going to be pesky all season, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely think Baltimore is pesky.
That division is pretty tough now that you look at it. Toronto, I don't know what's going to go on with Toronto because every year, like I said last week or the week before, Toronto's going to do this, Toronto's going to do that, and then Toronto just doesn't do anything. Bassett he got killed his first game pitching for Toronto, and then he gave up a bomb to Trout tonight. I mean, so I don't know how good Toronto is going to be. Tampa Bay, of course, off to a great start, but I think they're going to come down to earth, and I just think that division is going to be tough. And the Yankees, when they get Rodon back and the injury problems are solved, if they're solved, the Yankees will be fine. I'm not worried about the Yankees. That division is going to be pretty fun this season.
Yeah, I think all those teams are going to certainly, maybe with the exception of Boston, should be at least over 500 and certainly be competitive. And Joseph Bostrom says that Baltimore is going to be a pain in the fill in the blanks. Yeah, they definitely got the makings of a team. We saw that last year in the second half and how they hung around here. But brute force, obviously, Yankees off to an okay start, kind of like everybody else. Right now it's early. But what is your impressions of the Bronx Bombers?
Yeah, I'm with everybody else for the most part. I would be confident if I'm a Yankee fan. First of all, I want to thank the Yankees for making me look smart because those Philadelphia Phillies are doing wonderful so far. I mean, it just continues. How I give them confidence, and look what happens. Look what they do.
Harper hasn't come out, but Harper's not back yet, though.
That's okay. Listen, the brute force did what he had to do. I picked the Phillies to win the division, and look what happens. All right, and I think it's going to continue. But with that being said, yeah, the Yankees are fine. I think that, the lineup's been okay. You guys mentioned a few guys like, Torres and Stanton who are doing really well right now. Torres obviously with the bat, but fielding, we still got to put a big question mark on that, especially today with his mistake that he made in the field. But ultimately, I think the Yankees are okay. Garrett Cole, listen, you guys talk about him doing well the first 2 starts. I'm the type of guy that I know Garrett Cole is going to be fine in the regular season. I don't care what he does in the regular season anymore, really. I think he'll be fine. It's all about the postseason with him. All right. And obviously we're going to see, we saw more last postseason. Okay. We're going to hopefully see more this postseason. So I do think that that's the ultimate test for him. I know he's going to put up good starts to be a good pitcher in the regular season. So I don't need to really be seen with that. The bullpen for the Yankees, I definitely need to see a little bit more of that. Not as much as the Mets, because we'll get to them in a second. But the Yankees bullpen, we need to see more. And then, listen, besides that, listen, I don't want to do this too early, Chris, but I'm starting to hear the Boone Birds already are out. All right, the Boone Birds. I hear people complaining about Aaron Boone already and his decisions. All right, and who he's bringing in the game and who he's pitch hitting. All right, we'll hear that all year long, okay? But ultimately, it's probably too early to be talking about Boone right now. I just can't believe how Yankee fans will find a way to do it. But ultimately, like I said at the beginning, the Yankees are fine. I thank them for beating the Phillies. All right, we as Mets fans thank them for beating the Phillies. All right, 2 out of 3. Beating the Giants was good too. So, the Yankees are making Mets fans smile for the moment. They've done their job, and, I think they'll be fine as we go forward.
Yeah, Yankees, I think, will certainly be fine. I think they're off to an okay start, and I think it's still very early in the season. And a couple of comments here before we transition to something else. Good call on the Phillies, Brute. Remains to be seen on that good call. Still very early to be calling things here. And Joseph Bostrom, thanks, says you're welcome. John Gonzalez, though, which I think is a very fair point, says the brute force just jinxed the Yankees.
The Phillies did win today, right?
Yes, they did.
I did pick the Yankees to win the division at the beginning of the year. If that's what he's talking about, maybe that's what he's referring to. Or referring to me saying that I'm confident in them right now. I mean, whatever it takes.
I like that prediction. I'm with you.
Well, they'll be fine, Chris. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, I'm not worried yet.
All right. Well, the Montas trade was a disaster. That's
Absolutely.
something that
John is putting it nicely. So.
Fair point on that. Yep. Before we get to the Mets, and I know we kind of briefly, somebody mentioned the Tampa Bay Rays, and I had noticed they're off to a 7-0 start, and I believe they've won all 7 of their games by 4 runs or more so far. And certainly it's a rather interesting start for a team that's been rather challenged for offense of late. And I mean, I know Justin kind of talked about them, thought they would maybe fall back into the pack. I'm sure, Chris, you'll speak about them on the Talking Rivals. I actually do have it in the rotation for tomorrow to play, now that we have the opportunity to hear it. But, I mean, are the Tampa Bay Rays for real? Are they going to continue this assault on Major League Baseball with their offense? I mean, what do I expect here from the Tampa Bay Rays?
Oh, absolutely. The Tampa Bay Rays are for real. They've been for real, right, for the past, few years now. So it's just a matter of who are these guys, right? A lot of times they have guys in the, the rotation or in the lineup, and you're like, who are these guys? They come out of nowhere. They signed this kid Springs. He's been a bust for the last couple of years, and he comes to the Rays, and now he's an ace, right? Yeah. So it just that's what happens with these guys. And Glasgow is not even in yet.
Yeah, but the lineup to me is really powering them. I mean, the lineup is just. I mean, we would usually think the pitching, but it's the lineup that's kind of powered this team so far. That's kind of my thought on that. As long as
Franco could stay healthy, Arozarena is carrying over his WBC level of play right into the regular season. That's really dangerous because usually he has good postseason numbers and not regular season
as
numbers,
good regular season. Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, now he looks like he's raring to go right now. So we'll see how long that lasts. But Tampa Bay is definitely for real. I had them making the playoffs. But they look like they might go for the division this year. That's how good they look. If Glasnow comes back and pitches like he does, that's one of the best rotations in baseball, easily. So, and then the bullpen, it's like no matter who they have, that's the other thing. No matter who they have in the bullpen, it works out. So, they've been a dangerous team. They figure it out. Their analytics are better than everybody else's.
It's amazing. Yeah. Now that's the point. That I agree with. It's amazing to me. You look at them, even the last 15 years, and just how consistently good this team is, and they don't keep these players long. They don't sign
No,
these players to big deals, and they find ways. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
just an amazing organization from top to bottom. Um, they have figured it out with like a minimal payroll, so it just works. And like you said, they don't stick around that long. Well, once these guys are getting ready to get paid, they get him out. Franco, I was surprised they signed him to that big long-term deal. So it was good for their fans, the few fans that are there. But that's the other thing. They got to figure out their stadium. They have they got to figure out a new stadium because they're not going to be able to stay there for much longer. The commissioners already said that. So if they don't figure it out, they're going to be moving to whatever, these new Nashville or Vegas. So we'll see what happens. But Tampa Bay is without a doubt for real. I mean, if they don't make the playoffs, I'll be shocked.
Okay. Before I get to Justin again, because I'm curious on what he has to say before I bring in the other guys, John Gonzalez says, whenever the brute means confidence, the party is over. It wasn't exactly my point about the Mets, Brad. You talked about confidence in the season. Well, it didn't spiral. We lost the division, which kind of did have
They
an
did
early
win 101 games, John. All right, hold on a little bit. All right, pump the brakes on that.
Okay, all right, but they did end early in October. The season did end early, so that's just the point. I see Jake Bauers coming up soon, taking over left field for the Yankees. That's a good point there. Good point. No, Chris, you disagree? Well, tell me what you think.
I'm not sure about that. I'd be shocked if they did that. Because you know what? Cabrera's been so good in left field right now. And Bader's coming back in a few weeks. So I don't know if he's really going to fit. I see changes coming. I just don't know what they're going to do. Are they just going to release Hicks, or are they going to try to trade him and eat most of his deal?
What does Hicks have? One more year left on the contract after this?
2 more after this.
Oof.
And they're $10 million a year. He's got 3 years, $30 million. I don't see them eating $30 million. I could see them eating $20 million and trading them, to somebody for a bag of balls or something. You know what I mean? But I don't think they want to cut. I don't think they want to eat $30 million. But they might have to, because if they're not even going to pinch hit him over IKF, I mean, what's his role? He even said it last week. What's my role here? If he's not going to play left field, if he's not going to pinch hit, I mean, what's his role? I have no idea. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a fair point. But I'm curious. I have an Anthony Finkel comment, but it really has nothing to do with anything here in particular. But I do appreciate the comment for now. I mean, after what I just heard from Chris, Justin, and the Tampa Bay Rays are off to this strong start, lineup to me looks a little bit more surprisingly good than maybe I would have anticipated. Starting pitching certainly has not been as good. It's still very early, but I mean, why do you contend that they fall back to earth a little bit? Whereas Chris had felt that they'll make the playoffs and maybe even challenge for a division. Who knows?
Well, it's kind of like what you said about their lineup. The lineup's been a little bit surprising early on. I think
Very surprising.
I think that their lineup is destined to regress, and I think that I'm not saying that they're going to be a bad team. Let's not misconstrue the words here. I just think that they're probably the third best team, even though I have the Orioles slightly ahead of them. I think it's like very even. I don't see them being able to score enough runs, and I don't. Yeah, even though their pitching has always been consistently good, I think it will be good, and I think the addition of Glass now will absolutely be welcome in that rotation when he comes back. But I do find it as the days go on that they're going to find it hard to score runs, and they're going to be in some tight battles. And if they can win the 1-run games, then maybe they do end up playing better than I think. But I just see their offense. I just see that offense falling off.
Fair points here. Also, one for you, finally, the Brute Force. Before we move on here, I want to get to the Mets and Hicks will be playing with the Brew Force soon in the Brew Crew. Now, I would have to ask, are you guys coming back this summer? I know most of you guys are probably out in terms of doing something in the sports world. Maybe Sans, Jake Guggenheimer, Goog. I was about to call him Gubenheimer, but it's Guggenheimer, actually. I don't want to misconstrue the name there because it's been a while since we've had Googs on here. But, I mean, are you guys playing this season? If you were to play, would you take on Aaron Hicks should he be available as a free agent?
Well, first of all, let me say this. If Aaron Hicks would like my spot, he could have it because, unfortunately, whether we play or not, I am coaching 5 teams, and there is no way I can be able to play and coach 5 teams at the same time. So, Aaron Hicks, if you're listening and you lose your spot, there is a spot on the Brew Crew available because I won't be there. So, you can take it. But can I just have one thought, by the way, on the Rays real quick?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because I totally agree with Chris. But I got to be a Debbie Downer for a second, all right? Because the Rays have played the Tigers, they played the Nationals,
and they
played the Athletics. I mean, I know they're doing well, and I want to give them their props because they aren't a joke, and they are a good baseball team. They're one of the more respected organizations that I like to see play baseball because they always find these guys – even like this year, Zach Eflin. I mean, this guy hasn't been a great pitcher for Philly, and he goes there and he looks like a star. So they make these guys look good. But their hot start, I'm going to take a little bit into account who they're playing and what they've done against their opponents. And let's see them play a little stiffer competition. But I'm not going to try to completely down them, but I am going to say their competition has been quite weak to start the season.
And I'll say this in defense of that, maybe even to Justin's take. I always remember the story of the 2002 Cleveland Indians. Nobody remembers them. They started the season 11-1. Where did they end up? Sub 500, nowhere near the playoffs. So you can start 7-0, and it doesn't mean anything.
I mean,
in the longest,
look at the Mets in 2018. The Mets started 11-1.
Yeah, 11-1. Right. So, I mean, it doesn't mean anything. And the longest winning streak to start an MLB season was the Milwaukee Brewers in 1987, and they didn't make the playoffs. So, I mean, starting as strong doesn't mean as much. So, it doesn't necessarily mean.
At least Tampa's got a track record.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tampa's been a good franchise. I think Brad said it and correctly pointed out. They have been a good franchise for a while. And John Gonzalez says the A's have become a big joke. 11 AAA teams had better attendance on there in opening day. I know one team that they actually won't have better attendance to. That is the Staten Island, the Ferry Hawks. The Ferry Hawks they draw less people than a Brew Crew game, the Staten Island Ferry Hawks, for different reasons. But
well, I'll say this, too, to John's point, because he's mentioning the A's. If us Mets fans didn't show up to those games in Miami, that it would be close in attendance with the A's because
I was reading that actually.
So many Mets fans there. If there were no Mets fans, there wouldn't be many Marlins fans. Put it that way.
What was the game you went there? 19,000, I think, in the ballpark. That's it on a Friday. I think it was 19,000. Right? Was the attendance?
I believe it was around there, and it was probably 10,000 plus Mets fans.
I was gonna say that. I mean,
that's embarrassing.
I should throw this out there then before I get to the Mets. I know Rob Maraska and Billy McInerney are probably jumping at the bits to talk the Mets, but I mean, 3,700 people were at the last A's game, and this is embarrassing. I mean, we were just talking about wrestling with Randy Dillon, and we were talking about whether AEW, I know it's two different things, could pull off 60, 70,000 people in Wembley, and yet we're talking about the Oakland A's, a Major League Baseball team, probably with the cheapest tickets around. They can't even draw more than AAA teams. I mean, how much longer can this go on, guys? How much longer can this go on here?
Not much. Honestly, it's time to either finally come to an agreement with the city of Oakland and get this new stadium built or move. I mean, look, Las Vegas is willing to take on another professional sports team, and I believe they can fully handle it. I mean, they've gotten great attendance from the Raiders. I mean, even though the NFL always does pretty great with attendance. And the Golden Knights, granted, they've been in the playoffs.
They've won a lot, though. Granted, they have won a lot of games.
They've been in the playoffs every year except for last year. In the first 6 years of their existence.
And the first year Stanley Cup Finals, I might add. That really sold the franchise.
But they've drawn well.
True.
So I do think that even if the A's struggle for the first couple of years in Las Vegas, they would draw. They would draw, and then the revenue would be there. And you maybe think they would actually spend some money.
Actually, I have a funny joke, and Brad, you'll appreciate this. I think Yeshiva men's basketball games draws more than the A's these days.
Oh,
I
100%.
think that's-
And by the way, their facility is the only reason why they don't have more. If their facility,
I know that facility. We could talk about that off the air, not on the air, but that facility is certainly not as desirable as it should be.
You know what,
Right, but-
Tom?
Go ahead,
It-
Rob Marazza.
It's a shame. The Oakland A's. What a great franchise they were.
That's what
Historical
Joey
franchise.
Bostrom just said here. I mean, it's a franchise. If you think about it, guys, I mean, they have an amazing legacy. I mean, they have had a legacy that, it's not the Yankees or the Cardinals or the Dodgers or the Red Sox, but it's not that far behind some other franchises. I would dare to say it's in the second tier, bro. It's right up there with the Giants, right up there with the Cleveland Indians, Cincinnati Reds, with the Guardians now. I mean, it's a franchise had a lot of success, even recent success.
I mean,
And you
they
know
moved
what?
around a lot too.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? Philadelphia A's, Kansas City A's, Oakland A's, and I think it's time for the Las Vegas A's because
Yep.
Yep.
I can't see them staying in Oakland. It's a disaster there now. If they go to Vegas, the franchise will have a rebirth. They'll get attendance there, and I just think that it would be, it's time for them to move again.
Yeah, this can't. I mean, 3,700 people in a Major League Baseball game, professional sporting event. I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, we saw it locally to an extent. I hate to bring it up when the Islanders were in Brooklyn. There was a couple of games I was there personally that had probably similar attendance, but this cannot go on here much longer. And Joey Bostrom would like to add that the A's are sad. It's a shame because, like Rob said, they have a great history. You think about the players that have played for the Oakland A's. You think about Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson. You think about Dave Stewart, Catfish Hunter. You think about even these more recent teams, Barry Zito, Tim Hudson. You think about Eric Chavez, who was obviously a Yankee Met coach. And you think about, whatever you think of him, McGuire, Canseco, Dennis Eckersley, Carney Lansford. I mean, you think about the players that have played, Giambi. I mean, it's a franchise that had a lot of success.
They were in the playoffs only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were in the playoffs 3 years in a row at that point. So it's not like they've been
They've had
bad
a lot
for
of
a long
postseason
time.
success recently too. I mean, they've been, I would say, to the postseason like 9 or 10 times the last 20 years. I mean, they've had a lot of postseasons.
They've generally been pretty good. It's only the last 2 years or so that they've gotten this bad, and now the attendance has gotten so bad. I mean, I don't know. MLB clearly has an attendance problem, right? Obviously less than 10,000 people at the Marlins Twins game on Monday. It was 8,898. 3,400 people were showing up to A's games. I mean, MLB just has a clear attendance problem right now. Now, granted, it's early in the season.
Oh, for certain cities. I don't think he's
for certain cities. I know it's early in the season. You might see a little bit lower numbers. Like even here in New York, you might not see bigger numbers until June or July, but those numbers are coming. In certain cities, those numbers aren't rising.
Yeah, you're not getting it in Miami. You're probably not getting it in Detroit. You're probably not going to get it in Minnesota if they're not winning. Certainly Oakland, Tampa, you're not getting it. Baltimore is going to probably be 50-50. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, you're not getting it right in those cities.
To be honest with you, the Reds draw. The Reds do draw.
Yeah, but last year their attendance was down significantly, though. I mean, these cities you're talking about, they're not getting the 30, 40,000. I mean, Billy's shaking his head. I mean, he kind of sees the point.
You can't blame them either. You can't blame the fans.
Yeah, they started 3-22 last year. You're not spending.
And John Gonzalez even wants to point out, which is a fair point, he has more people in his sports authorities group, which everybody can go to on Facebook at the sports authorities, and the Oakland A's getting attended. That's sad, though, that a major league franchise, especially the Oakland A's, which I checked, thanks to the crack staff for giving it to us, 11 postseason appearances since 2000. They've been to the postseason 11 times. The New York Mets have not even been to the postseason 11 times in their history. And the Oakland A's have been to the playoffs 11 times since 2000, and they're drawing 3,000 people. It's an abomination.
But also, when you see the A's team, you could understand why the fans aren't going.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, they're garbage.
Trevor May's not getting butts in seats,
Well,
They
But
did
the point
Barrett.
is, though, is that they had success, and whether it's the ballpark, whether it's the ownership, I mean, there has to be something that they cannot continue to go on this path. We just can't. I mean, you talked about cities that aren't going to draw, but they're not going. They're going to still draw more than 3,000. Yes, baseball has an
Hey,
attendance
playing the
problem.
Angels got them 15,000.
Well, you know what? Well, there's a couple of reasons why. You got Trout and Otani, and
But,
I have a ton of.
but think about how. But also too, think about how big the Oakland Coliseum is, and their opening day attendance was only 26,000.
Yeah, I mean the Coliseum is cavernous to say the least.
That's horrible.
They've become the Expos for different reasons. I have a bunch of comments here. Let me try to rattle them off here before I come back to the New York Mets. The Rays are a playoff team, not going to win the division, but a good baseball team. Yeah, and I think most people would probably agree with that. The legendary Joe Dell of Sleepy Hollow want to wish his wife, Laura, a happy birthday. Laura, though, is banned on Facebook. Why is she off Facebook for comments for a week? I'm curious. Did she say something wrestling related? Because she runs a group also, the Wrestling Roundtable. So, Joe, tell me why your wife is not able to comment on Facebook. Did she say something about WWE and Vince McMahon? Is that what that was? Every baby starts off as their first words being Metsy, even in Florida. I hadn't thought about that, but okay.
By the way, does he happen to know Cameron Young at all?
Maybe
from Sleepy Hollow.
You know what? If anybody would know, it's Joe Dell. He's got a lot of friends.
It is Masters weekend.
You know, I was actually watching some of that, so maybe we'll get a thought on that on closing thoughts. The A's are sad. It's a shame because they have a great history. And John Gonzalez corrects Joey Bosham. They won 2 World Series under Dick Williams, one with Alvin Dark. Alvin Dark managed the Yankees, right, for a brief period. Was he the Yankees or the Giants? He was one of those teams, right? And Joey Bosham says, true, the Oakland Coliseum is a dump. Yeah, it was a dump even when the Raiders played there. So when the Oakland A's play there, it's got to be even worse. But speaking of fields that aren't a dump, that is Citi Field, and the New York Mets did play opening day today, and I want to get Billy McInerney's take because we haven't heard from Billy, and the Mets do come back here and get a victory over the Marlins, kind of an interesting game. Caught a little bit of it today before I went on the radio here and talked with another professional wrestler, but Mets kind of get back on track, and Billy, observations on a rather cold opening day, which we already got into earlier in the show, but Mets do get a win, get back on track, and give me your thoughts on this Mets team right now.
Yeah, I mean, so far they're winning the games they're supposed to. You know, they're 4-1 against the Marlins in the division. You know, it's definitely a good win to get back. Pete Alonso seems to have finally broken out from his early season struggles. The top of the lineup I'm not worried about. Nimmo, Lindor, Marte, Alonso, even McNeil I'm not really worried about. If we start getting to Canna, Vogelback, I think they're worried. Escobar and, Nito, I don't even – they're not going to hit. They're not. Nito is fine. He's good defensively. He's an okay backup, whatever. Escobar, he needs to play part-time at best. Tyler McGill kind of exercises demons from spring training and from his first start a little bit. Seems to really battle through, especially, on a cold day where it's hard to command the ball. The Marlins, I don't know what's wrong with the Marlins. They should be a better team.
I agree with you. I mean, they actually made some moves in the offseason. They spent a few dollars, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the only 2 small market teams that I'd say are really trying right now are Cleveland and Miami, and kind of feel bad for Miami. That's just not working out for them. I mean, granted, they have 15 second basemen on the roster. That's probably not helping, but, it's even the defense being bad, they should be hit. It's kind of like the reverse of the Rays. The Rays bring in all these guys that you never heard of, and they hit well, they pitch well, whatever. The Marlins, they bring in guys who have been hitting well. They go to Miami, and it's like they left their bats at their old city. They're not hitting. You look at Ivisel Garcia.
Solaire's been the only, I would say, power for them so far.
Yeah, Solaire's been good.
Yeah, Solaire's been good. Chisholm, I think, if he stays healthy, will obviously turn around. But it's just they bring in these outside ads, and you keep seeing it. They're just not. They're not producing. They're not getting anything out of them. Arias had that good opening series, but it's just the big bats they keep bringing in. They're trying everything they can think of, and it's just they're not doing anything. I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure they're frustrated as an organization. I'm sure their fan base, all 8 of them are frustrated. So
Who's got bigger fans than the Marlins or the A's at this point? I could flip a coin, right?
I feel like the A's have more fans, but the Marlins are going to draw more people to the ballpark. Would be my.
That's a good one. Good
Yeah.
line. I like that.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they go. I will say I think getting rid of Brian Anderson and then bringing in Gene Segura to play a position he's never played before was probably not a good idea. That Anderson. So it's just a lot of curious decisions the Marlins have made, and some decisions that should have worked out that didn't. But not about the Marlins. The Mets, good game. Liked what I saw from McGill. I like that we didn't burn the entire strong back end of our bullpen in a game that turned out being kind of a blowout. So, good game. And then you come back tomorrow, you try to string a couple wins together and kind of build some momentum for that West Coast trip.
Absolutely. And Justin, you were there at the game. You were at the ballpark. I'm sure you did bring a jacket, to say the least. But Mets do get on track. I saw you post about it on Facebook. And just give me your impressions on the game and where the team is right now at the moment.
Yeah, it was a good win, and quickly to just piggyback, not spend too much time on the Marlins, but to piggyback on some of the things Billy said. I think the Marlins are just going to be one of these pesky teams. I think they will pick it up offensively, and they got some incredible talent at the top of their pitching rotation. If Edward Cabrera could put it together, man, he's going to be special. We know how good Luzardo is. We know how great Alcantara is. Their pitching is going to be just fine. I think their offense will ultimately pick it up as well. I think they got some good hitters. And I think Segura will figure things out defensively, and I think ultimately he's going to be, a big part of them. I actually think they could be around 500, slightly under. I think they're a decent decent roster. They really are. As for the Mets, it was a much needed win. Milwaukee was a complete disaster. I mean, the offense finally shows up in Game 3, and then Adam Ottavino decides to throw the worst slider of his entire life, and Garrett Mitchell hit that ball, maybe landed at Lambeau. I mean, that's how far Garrett Mitchell hit it. Look, it was an all around disaster in Miami, in Milwaukee. I mean, and they bounced back today. Tyler McGill looked very, very sharp, especially after the comebacker that hit his foot and somehow went another 300 feet. It seemed like. I don't know what his foot is made of, but that thing bounced halfway into the outfield, and Marte had to go retrieve it. But he pitched really well today. The bullpen, aside from Dennis Santana, who gave up that 3-run bomb to Cooper,
in the middle innings,
they all pitched pretty well. It was just a good win. It was good to see Marte get his first home run, Lindor get his first home run. Pete's already up to 4 on the year, and I really truly believe Pete's going for 50 plus this year. I think he's going to have a monster season.
Well, you like to start 4 so far off the bat, 4 here in 8 games. I mean, that you do the math, that's going to be
which I also believe in due time, Stevie Cohen will be writing that check in the off season for him.
Well, I tell you what, he can make up for yesterday's bogey, quote unquote, Masters reference there on the lack of game being played by certainly.
You know what? Again, I'm not going to criticize them for that, even though I probably would have been better off sitting in yesterday's sunshine, today's windiness, sitting up top. But all in all, it was a good performance. The bats. I want to say they were good today, but they really weren't.
No, they had chances and didn't come through. I mean, the Marlins were able to hang in that game.
I mean, like I said, like I tweeted out, you get first and second on, nobody out with Vogelbach, Escobar, and Nito coming up. It went exactly how you thought it would. 2 strikeouts and a weak ground out. And then you finally load the bases. You load the bases again the next inning. Alonso strikes out looking. McNeil strikes out looking. And it's just like, here we go again. Fortunately, Canna walked, and Vogelbach got the infield single because the pitcher falls asleep and forgets to cover the bag. And Garrett Cooper wandered a little too far, which we've seen Pete do that a couple of times, where he wanders a little too far and then there's nobody there to cover the bag. He's learned, but I think that kind of got the offense going a little bit. But good bounce back win. Obviously, they're 4-1 against the Marlins. Can't play the Marlins every time, but they definitely looked a lot better today.
All right, before I get to Rob Maraska, John Gonzalez has a point which I have heard from people off the show. The Mets bullpen was exposed in Milwaukee, and Scherzer is looking old. Yeah, the window is going to be very short when it comes to Scherzer and Mr. Verlander and Rob
So
Maraska.
I got a couple. So I got a couple of things on what John just said. I wouldn't say the bullpen got exposed more than the Mets just got their what's kicked in. And I think that really, honestly, that had more to do with the starting pitching. David Peterson was not good. Max Scherzer was just dreadful, especially in that 6th inning when he gave up the back. I think it was more the starting pitching, and that's my biggest concern with this team. I think overall the offense will be fine, and also too with the Omar Narvaez injury, I do believe we'll start to see. Even though he didn't play today, we're starting to see a lot of Francisco Alvarez behind the plate. And you know what? I would love to see him hit, but I'm not going to be upset if he doesn't. He's gonna take his lumps. He's going to learn at the big league level how to handle a pitching staff, how to hit the major league pitching, and I think in due time he's going to be a tremendous bat for this team. So overall, I think the lineup will end up being fine. The bullpen, I think in the end, is going to be fine. The starting pitching, I cannot say the same.
Well, you got a nice core.
We have not yet seen Justin Verlander. David Peterson has looked very, very shaky in both starts, even though the first game he skated by and made his pitches. Kodai Senga is still this complete unknown, even though he had that shaky first inning and dominated the rest of the way. Scherzer's looking very, very old. I agree with John on that 100%. And I'm beginning to start placing the Tom Glavine 2.0 narrative on him.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I heard that from somebody yesterday as well. And also, Anthony Finkel's got a comment here about something. I'm not even going to read off the comment. I mean, happy, we're boys, but
leave it to Anthony to be Mr. Controversial.
Yeah, look, some people obviously on the air we can only read so many things on Sportswire, but I do appreciate the support here. But obviously, I'm going to try to respectfully move on here. But I do want to wish Anthony, if he's out there, a happy Easter and certainly be well out there. And Joey Bostrom kind of moves us back off the track. The starting rotation is a huge concern. Robert Rosk, I know you're watching this team, and it's a mixed bag. Obviously, against the Marlins, the Mets have been good. Against the Brewers, a team that has had a lot of success lately, not so good. Is it certainly the Mets maybe against other teams a little bit inferior, or maybe I'm missing something here? Give me your thoughts on the New York Mets and their kind of, I guess, so-so start.
Yeah, well, Milwaukee was a disaster. We know that. And I agree with Justin. I'm worried about the pitching staff a little, they were up there in age. Scherzer, Tom Glavine 2.0. It's possible. We'll have to see. It's early. But today was opening day at Citi Field. And what happens opening day for the Mets at home? They usually win, and they won. And that was a great thing. Couple of things from this game. Alonso, it looks like he's back, and that home run today, that was a great shot. But my problem with the Mets is Escobar. I think he had a great September last year, but that was about it.
He had one great month, and the rest of the year, the guy couldn't buy a lick. I mean, he hit like 480 in September, and the rest of the year, what did he hit? Like 190?
Yeah, he's a problem. Beatty's injury isn't that bad, so hopefully, he's going to come up to the big club soon. Let's get some younger players playing. Escobar, I can't even. He's an automatic out right now. Every time he gets up, the guy makes it out. So
I'd rather see Luis Guillorme, honestly, because I
Yeah.
know.
Well, you know,
I
Ernest Dub,
look,
that's
I
music
know,
to Ernest
I
Dub's
know I'm
ears.
not going to expect much because I know I'm not going to expect much from Luis at the bat. But you know what I know? He's going to make every play third. And you know what?
Oh, definitely.
His offense will be a plus, and he could be a holdover until Beatty is ready to come up. Now, obviously, I know the reports where he was supposed to be back in the lineup tonight for Syracuse. I don't know if that happened. If anything, hopefully he plays the month of April in AAA and just lights it up, and they bring him up, and we see Beatty sooner than later. But in the interim, especially against right-handed pitching, which will be most of the time, I need to see Luis Guillorme at third base. If you want to tell me you want to play Escobar against some left-handed pitching, okay, he did do a lot better last year batting right-handed, so I can buy that in the interim. But ultimately, this has got to be Beatty's job.
Yeah, and it's just hard to watch him. A couple other takes of opening day and some of the new stuff at Citi Field. Justin, how big was that scoreboard? I think
John Gonzalez had commented about that. Yeah,
they saw that from the International Space. Really, that thing is huge.
Yeah, it was great. It was updated with a lot of new graphics. I will say the right field scoreboard went out in the 8th inning.
Went out. See,
yeah,
we didn't
not the new big one, but the one in right field.
Yeah, and the out of town scoreboard looks pretty cool too. The new one.
It's so clear to see too.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something. I'm telling you, listening to when they brought everybody out, this is the first time I've heard them introduce the sous chef. I mean, how many people did they introduce?
Oh my
today?
God. It was like, if you want to count the coaches and all that staff, I want to say Howie mentioned like at least 15, maybe 20 people.
It was crazy. The executive chef, everybody.
By the way, the executive chef got one of the bigger hands out of the non-players.
I know, and also
our players well. Please.
And I was happy to see that they put Bob Murphy's plaque up there on the top of the stadium. That was also good, and I was happy to see that because Bob Murphy was the voice of my childhood. So you know what, that was great.
There was a moment I was starting to get a little concerned because they start rolling through the players, and then they mentioned Narvaez. They mentioned a couple of other guys who were injured on the injured list, and they mentioned Verlander, and then they skip over 39. I'm like,
yeah,
wait, did Edwin not make it? And then they have the whole entrance for him. I thought that was pretty sick.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They had They had to do that. They had to have the trumpets play at least once this year, so they did it.
Absolutely. Before I get to the brute force, I have a bunch of comments here. John Gonzalez says, let Fink be Fink. Of course, we love the Fink here on Sportswire. I just can't read off every comment. There are certain comments I can read and others I can't. But, of course, Fink is always one of my guys. That's always.
Got to stay PG rated.
Yeah, well, that's here nor there. But Rob is right. The Mets always win an opening day. The Mets have the best opening day winning percentage, right, in Major League Baseball history, if I'm not mistaken. Escobar will be gone soon. Beatty will be back. Yeah, Escobar's going that way. And Joey Bostrom says, I need that scoreboard in my living room. Don't we all?
Yeah.
The Brute Force Brightwise, I am so curious before we move on here to get to a few other thoughts before closing thoughts here. Your opinion on the New York Mets, because obviously you were there in Miami. You certainly were there for some of the good vibrations, but we spoke a lot about off the field. But give me your impressions on today's game and kind of where we are with this team, because everybody wants to hear the confident, brute force Brad Weiss on those New York Mets.
Well then. All right. Well, let me start with this. All right, let me go back to opening day for a second. All right. I want to show you guys this quickly. I didn't get to show you last week. All right. This is what I got at the game. All right. Make it loud. All right. The Mets fans certainly made it loud. All right, on opening day.
They really say the greatest opening day matchup in history.
That's what it says. Yeah, that's what it says. So listen, these Marlins. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking down there, but you know, they gave us a nice towel, and, you know, I use it to, you know, clean my hands. So, you know, good for them.
You actually did it. When I used to get those towels, I would like keep them as a souvenir. You're actually using the towel. Interesting.
Yeah, to, you know, clean the hands, you know, those type of things. I don't want to post it or anything like that. But anyway, good for the Marlins. I mean, I'm glad they could afford it with the amount of fans they get. But anyway, let's start with this. All right, I gotta debut a new slide on the Sports Report today. All right, because normally on this show, I have this up for the Mets. All right, we have confidence. We talk about confidence. Today, I got a new one, ladies and gentlemen. It is called caution.
Wow.
I got a lot of things to talk about when it comes to the Mets, and it needs to be cautionary measures, and I'm going to attack a few individuals while I do it. All right? So, number one about the New York Mets. Okay? All right? Miami, just like I talk about the Rays, yeah, they're doing their job. All right? They're beating Miami. That's what they're supposed to do. All right? The Milwaukee series, absolute embarrassment, all right, to, you know, everyone, every Mets fan. I mean, they just got destroyed, gave no effort, no heart, no nothing. I mean, it was embarrassing. I couldn't even watch it. And I'm the guy that likes to watch almost the whole game no matter what. And I couldn't watch a few of those games against the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, to go off that right now, to start with culprit number one on my list, all right, and you guys mentioned him, but I got to take it deeper, and that is Max Scherzer. Okay, I got to talk about him right now. He is horrible. I repeat, he is horrible right now, and everything that he did at the end of last season is showing this season. Okay, he's letting up home runs left and right. He's throwing meatballs left and right. He's not throwing, and he's not effective with his pitch speeds and his pitch location right now. He is terrible right now, and guess what? There are flashbacks right now. I'm not even looking at that comment, okay? I'm not looking. Okay, there are flashbacks in my head right now when I see Max Scherzer. When I see Max Scherzer going up against Yu Darvish on Monday, I'm almost having heart attacks when I think about that because I saw 4 home runs the last time I saw that when Scherzer was pitching. So I am nervous when it comes to Max Scherzer. He's supposed to be the ace of the team. He's supposed to be the guy we could trust in the big games. I don't think we could do that right now. He looks like a 4th or 5th starter right now the way he's pitching. So I am majorly concerned with Max Scherzer. There needs to be a cautionary measure out for him and his pitching right now because it is bad. And like I told you guys last week in Miami, that home run that Cooper hit off him was one of the loudest home runs I've ever heard. This guy got smacked. All right, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, all these hard line drives, even against Milwaukee, every hit they had, hard. There was no easy hit. So it is a problem with Max Scherzer. Okay, now let me get to another guy that deserves to be put on Front Street by the brute force Brad Weiss. All right, and I don't like to pick on those that weigh a lot. All right, but I'm going to do it right now. Daniel Vogelback. All right, and you mentioned it before, Tom Bryce. And when I forgot who commented when Wilmer Flores, J.D. Davis, Michael Conforto all hit home runs today. You know what I'm going to say right now, Tom Bryce? I'd rather have any of those 3 over Daniel Vogelback right now. Daniel Vogelback is not the answer at DH, okay? To me, he has the shortest leash in that lineup right now, and his leash needs to continue to get thinner and thinner. I know Escobar is there too, but I feel like Escobar at least provides he could field, he bats from both sides of the plate. What does Daniel Vogelback do besides hit? Nothing! Nothing! He can't do anything else, and he's not hitting.
Doesn't even hit. He walks.
He doesn't even hit. Right.
Between him and Aaron Hicks, do they have a hit between them this season?
By the way, has anybody seen a baseball player who swings the bat less than Daniel Vogelbach does? It's like
this is the
Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo. That might be my one answer to that.
Joey Gallo's mashing, man.
But this is hold on. Let me just say this right now. This is the problem with Daniel Back not swinging. When he walks, it's a bad thing because he can't run. So we don't want him to walk. All right. So that is the biggest thing. He's not hitting. He's here to hit. Okay. And the one thing that I say, all right. Yeah, agree with me, John Gonzalez. That's right. You agree. All right. J.D. Davis, at least he was flexible in the field. At least he hit.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
I liked a lot about J.D. Davis. I wasn't crazy when they got rid of him. Like, oh, my God, this is the worst thing they've ever done. But that trade was one of the worst trades they made because it was obviously for Darren Dan Ruff, who stinks too and ain't even on the team. All right? That was bad. Okay, and then like I said, I mean Wilmer Flores, guy we could have maybe gotten back better than Dan Vogelback. Michael Conforto, maybe you could have taken a flyer better than Vogelback. I mean, there's so many other guys you could put in there instead of Vogelback, and he is absolutely terrible. I don't care if he's batting 230. Watch him hit. He is not hitting the baseball, and that's what he's paid to do, and that's the only thing he can do. Okay, so ultimately, I am more mad at Vogelback than I am right now at Escobar, even though I know he's really stinking. At least Vogelback, his job is just to hit. That's all he can do, and he won't do it. So I think his leash is extremely short, and those two specifically with, by the way, let me pick on Jeremy Hefner too, because I'm going to pick on him. He needs to do a better job right now. I think he has also been, I know he's a little scared of Scherzer. He's scared of other guys, in the bullpen, but he needs to get his butt out there more often, okay, and kind of slow down, especially as a coach, Tom. There is such thing as momentum, and when the team has momentum and they're hitting you hard, you can slow it down by coming out to the mound and maybe talking to your pitcher. I know, Scherzer's one of a kind and some of the other guys, but you need to be more aggressive with kind of slowing it down. And the way the Milwaukee series went, where they're just bashing us, smashing us, crashing everything. I mean, you got to do a better job of getting out there. That's my personal opinion. But in the end, I am putting a cautionary tape on the New York Mets right now because I am not exactly sold at what I'm seeing right now from the lineup, from the pitching staff, from the bullpen. I'm hoping it gets better. Like I said, I'm not going to go and say I don't have confidence anymore. Let me not go that far. But I'm going to say we need to put a bow of caution when it comes to the Mets and watch what they're about to do because I know we're having fun with Miami. But let's see what happens when San Diego comes in next week and it's Scherzer against Darvish. I am nervous to see what's going to happen.
And by the way, we have an April West Coast trip that goes to, I think, San Francisco, LA, and Oakland, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, God.
So, and by the way, I think I have the explanation as to what happened in Milwaukee. They stayed in the Pfister Hotel. The famed haunted Milwaukee hotel.
I think I got a ton of comments here that people actually, after this, the Brute Force, they want to talk to you here. So let's first go to Anthony Finkel, who's got a great comment here, which I really agree with this one. And I could kind of see the World Clyde Frazier here. Smashing us, crashing us. The Brute channeling his inner Walt Clyde Frazier. We also call that hood poetry. Anthony Finkel, you're from Ditmas Park, though. Ditmas Park, I wouldn't necessarily say is the hood, though. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's hood poetry. Not his part, I can tell you that, and I know those areas very well.
I grew up in that area, and I know what you're talking about.
Yep. He's right by. I won't say where he is, but he's definitely not in that part. After his brute force rant, he needs to dry off with one of those stolen towels. Now, did you sure you didn't steal that towel, by the way?
They gave it away. They were giving it to me. I barely even want it. I'm a Mets fan. I'm wearing a Mets jersey.
And then, by the way, just so you know, John Gonzalez says the hotel called. They want the towels back.
Wow.
Did you happen to take one of those complimentary hotels with you back to Plainview?
No. Those towels. The towels at the hotel weren't great either. All right, so. Listen, I didn't steal nothing. Don't accuse me now of stealing stuff, John Gonzalez. All right, this towel, listen, right here. By the way, if you guys are curious, it actually says it in Spanish on the back too. All right, but I will say, it's nice, and I'll use it right now to get off my sweat. All right, but ultimately, I did not steal nothing.
All right. Certainly, I'm sure Aunt Laura and
Brad just did that. Marlins have just won 2 out of 3 confirmed. I just went.
Brad, actually, are you going to Citi Field this week before I get to more comments? Because people want to talk to you. Let me see. Are you going to? I thought you said you were going.
Oh, I did. Actually, our friend Jason Getz asked me to go tomorrow. I'm not sure if I can go because the Mets are actually giving out a nice Citi Field replica tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which I was thinking about going. I'm not sure if I can go yet. But I do know I'm going Tuesday with James Cronin.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring that up, because we do have a James congratulations for at the end of the show. We'll get to closing thoughts in a second. But, I mean, I was curious if you were going to continue this caution for you going there Tuesday to Citi Field, because I had heard from a birdie you were going there this coming week. So that's here nor there. I do also want to say from Joe Dell, Brute is on fire, and Joe Dell also mentioned as to why his wife is locked out of Facebook, something to do with the comment toward The Rock, which because speaking to PG comments, I'll leave that at that. Skulls, our very dear friend, Mr. Skulls of the EWF, wants to say, let's go Well, it's Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim now, but I certainly get the point. We love skulls. We will not mess with the Soul Hunter. Scherzer is collecting a paycheck. Could not agree with you more on that. Damn, I agree with the Brute. I would take any of those three ex-Mets over a Goodyear blimp. That was a good one. Darren Ruff was a disgrace to mankind. Yeah, I mean, now the Brew Crew could take Darren Ruff. I mean, Darren Ruff is out there as a free agent. Dallas Keuchel's a free agent out there. I mean,
no. You see, Darren Ruff wouldn't be able to make the team. He can't hit for nothing. I mean, my batting average is probably better than his. I mean,
Darren Ruff's probably going to end up being re-signed by the Phillies.
Yeah, you know what? They have their injuries to deal with. Sure.
You know what? Especially with the news that Derek Hall's going to be out a while with a thumb surgery.
Yeah.
And now they're down 2 first basemen.
All right, I got a ton of more comments to read because people really want to talk to the Brew Force right now. Let's see. He's just a walk in the park. I think that's your rant. That's what Skulls is referring to. Is you have a Soul Hunter basically saying your caution rant's just a walk in the park to what we normally get on Sportswire, which is actually pretty accurate because we've had a lot of shots being fired the last few days. Let's see what else we have here. Less sunflower seeds, more ball hitting. Yeah, it's a good one about Daniel Vogelbach.
Yes.
I would say less sunflower seeds, more ball hitting. Anthony Finkel's got a good one. The Brute Force, a.k.a. Captain Sticky Fingers. That's a good one. I like that one. Captain Sticky Fingers. Maybe we'll mention that here on Monday show with Gordon Scheuer. And Skulls has the, the caution emoji. Also, good one here, which I saw. Was it Ruben Tejada and Daniel Murphy both with the Long Island Ducks? First of all, I thought Daniel Murphy was retired. He was at Old Timers Day. And now I see Daniel Murphy is going to be playing for the Long Island Ducks.
Yep.
I mean,
I did see that.
He said he was working out with somebody. I think even somebody with the Mets, but he was working out with somebody down in Jacksonville during the offseason. And was like, I still got something left here. So he ended up signing with the Long Island Ducks.
So what is he, 37, 38?
He's 37 years old.
I'll take him over Vogelbach.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would take him too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Dude, Daniel Murphy's the guy who could roll out of bed and hit 300.
You know what? I mean, he didn't really end his career where he just couldn't hit. I think he just kind of
injuries too.
He
had a back injury. It was the back injury.
But clearly
That's
2 years off.
Interesting
Playing last
name.
year in Old Time. He also probably playing in last year's Old Timers Day. He probably played and was like, hold up. I know Old Timer yet.
You know what that
there yet.
You know what that reminds me of, Brad? And you'll appreciate this. Remember when Joe Johnson was dominating in the Big 3 league, and all of a sudden people were like, "Wow, Joe Johnson can really play," and then he got another contract after that. So that's
good old ISO Joe.
Joe Johnson, another guy that played forever. Him and Jamal Crawford, the guys that just could just never stop playing.
Yep.
And Ruben Tejada, which I think I just mentioned, Ruben Tejada is also a Long Island Duck. That's a blast from the past. You think about Ruben Tejada, had some big moments for the Mets, and Daniel Murphy as well. Murphy, so fascinating. That's a fascinating story because the guy was in Old Timers Day, and then we see him now here playing. It's almost reminds me of something in wrestling. We have a guy, Rey Mysterio, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame and is still wrestling. And also, Brad, because a lot of people right now seem like they want to talk to you before we get to closing thoughts, and I'll let Justin and Billy in their closing thoughts maybe wrap on the Rangers and Devils, but just for the interest of time, James Cronin or James Dolan, because it is about that time as we're getting close to end the show here, because it is that time, and you kind of were teased from Randy Dillon at the beginning of the show, and it is that time because it's the last one for the regular season. It is Dolan time here, the Brute Force, and the New York Knicks are locked in to playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Knicks are in that 5th seed. It was a wild ride and certainly an interesting one. Maybe not the night we hoped for tonight, but by and large, a interesting, strong week while you were away there in Florida, the Brute Force. So one more for the regular season. Dolan time on the Sports Report, and give us the rundown here on how you're feeling right now.
Well, it could also be the last one of the season because the next season might be over, although I believe the series will go further than next week.
They go 4 games. We have a show next week. You saying that they're
I mean, we'll see. All right, and hold on, because I'm going to give my prediction at the end of this statement I'm about to have.
Okay.
But ultimately, I'm not going to come on here and go crazy about Dolan time because, listen, the New York Knicks are a playoff basketball team. They are the 5 seed. They officially have clinched that seed, and they're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers. And listen, we know what the Cleveland Cavaliers are. They're a good basketball team. They're young. They play defense. They're a very good, well-coached team. All right. But everyone in New York knows that this series is not just about the Knicks against the Cavaliers. It's really the Knicks against Donovan Mitchell. All right.
I knew you were going there.
Everybody in New York knows that Donovan Mitchell wanted to be a New York Knick. Okay. And there was momentum going towards that. And obviously the New York Knicks organization screwed up. They didn't get it done. They let him go to Cleveland. And now we're playing him directly in the playoffs. And if you get eliminated by a guy that you could have had, on your team. And by the way, if Donovan Mitchell is a New York Knick, I might be talking way differently about the New York Knicks than I have over the last few weeks, because Donovan Mitchell is that type of player. But ultimately, you got to beat him. You can't lose to him, because if you lose to him and you lose to Cleveland, that really magnifies the fact that you didn't get him and he stepped in your way. And you can't let that happen. Now, with that being said, the New York Knicks are a good basketball team. Jalen Brunson is a very good player. He will obviously be huge for us. Julius Randle, he's got to come back. He's got to stop arguing with the refs, okay? And he's got to play basketball like he has. He has played good basketball all year long. I will be looking at guys like R.J. Barrett, who did play well tonight, by the way. Did play well, but he's a big X factor in this series, right? R.J. Barrett, what are we going to get from him? Is he going to be the guy who's went 0 for 9 from 3 tonight, or is he going to be effective shooting? Is he going to get to the rim like he did tonight? He did well with that. Or is he going to be a guy that's timid off the ball? Well, I need to see what type of things we get from him. Luckily, we do have some options. We got guys like Josh Hart, who's been great. Quentin Grimes, who's been great. Emmanuel Quickley, who I think arguably should be the sixth man of the year. He should at least be in the conversation. I mean, this guy has been unbelievable quickly.
Absolutely.
You got Obi Toppin, who could come off the bench and give you some minutes. Isaiah Hartenstein as the backup to Mitchell Robinson. They have a good bench, and that's the thing that's led the Knicks to success against Cleveland, is that they've won the bench battle, and that's kind of been the reason why they've had success. So for the Knicks, they got to win the bench battle, and they got to definitely defend Donovan Mitchell and get production from guys not named Randall and Brunson. So we have to see what that's going to be. But, Tom Bryce, it's the moment of truth. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I did look, by the way. I put it on Instagram, and I had many people, at least 50%. I actually got a good amount of people to vote. 50% vote that the Knicks are going to win this series in 7 games.
Wow. And I actually had a basketball player actually message me about your story you put up. I'll talk about it in my closing.
Okay.
Notes.
Well, let me say this. I cannot believe I'm going to say this. The New York Knicks will win this series in 7 games. The New York Knicks, I'll repeat it. The New York Knicks are going to win the series against the Cleveland Cavaliers in 7 games. And I just think that what I just said about that bench depth is going to be the reason why they win the series, is because they have a better bench. Okay, Emmanuel Quickley. I'm not reading that yet. Emmanuel Quickley is going to be a big name to watch out for. He's going to be a difference maker in this series. I think R.J. Barrett does just enough. And I think the Knicks, with Tom Thibodeau and that defensive mindset, they have guys like Hart and Grimes who are great on-ball defenders, will stop Donovan Mitchell, slow him down a little bit, and they'll make other guys beat them. And that is why I'm going to pick the New York Knicks. All right, I'm going to pick them. I know everybody's going to say, well, now they're going to lose. You picked them. You jinxed them, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I actually genuinely really think the Knicks are going to get this done. I think that'll be it for them. They'll lose in the second round. But for the first time since 2013, the New York Knicks will win a playoff series this season.
Wow, hell maybe has frozen over that the brute force Brad Weiss has actually picked the New York Knicks to win a playoff series. And I know we were on the air 2 years ago, and I'm almost certain of this. You did not pick them over the Atlanta Hawks. I'm almost pretty certain that. Maybe I'll have to go back and listen if the tape is out there. And I have a ton of comments here related to that. And first here, John Gonzalez says, Randy teasing the brute force. Oh, my God, you're done, brute. That is so funny, so true. Mitchell versus Brunson, what we wanted versus what we got. I'm very happy with Brunson. That's a great point because Jalen Brunson's had a great season, by the way, and I think you could make the case that he has been one of the reasons why the New York Knicks are where they are and returning to the postseason, having the success that they have had. And Joey Bosham feels more confident than you do, Brad. He thinks the Knicks can beat Cleveland in 6. Anyone hearing about LeBron complaining about losing the back-to-back games on the road when the last game was in law? I did say that. I think that was Anthony Finkel that posted that on Facebook in the Sports Authority.
But they weren't. I will. He's kind of right, but I will kind of defend LeBron in that they were on the road the previous game, so they did have to travel back to Los Angeles.
I can't defend this. I mean, this guy gets paid millions and millions of dollars. I mean, he should go out there.
Think back-to-backs in the NBAs are stupid, especially when teams are resting guys on back-to-back. If you're going to rest guys, end back-to-backs forever.
I mean, the problem is the NHL does them at times, and those guys don't whine. I mean, that's the problem. With the NBA, it's such a me league at times with that.
They're softer
yeah,
players,
more,
that's why.
Yeah, more comments. First round exit would be underperforming for the Knicks this season. They can get to the Eastern Conference Championship. Wow, Anthony Finkel, boy.
Whoa.
The Mario Brothers must have been that good, huh? Because, wow, Knicks Eastern Conference Championship. Damn, I was watching the Sixers yesterday. And we see Milwaukee. I mean,
they're not they're not beating Milwaukee. Let's just no way. They're not beating Milwaukee. They're not.
I don't think they're beating Philadelphia either. I don't think they're beating them either.
Well, Milwaukee's the 1 seed, and if the Knicks win, they play Milwaukee.
Right, but if they beat Milwaukee and then had to face the 76ers, let's say, in the Eastern Conference Finals, they're not beating them.
Unless Milwaukee gets upset, but they won't get upset.
No. They're gonna play the team that wins the second play-in.
Sad day in sports when Randy had a better March Madness bracket than the Brute Force. The world is upside down.
You know, John, you're the one that said your bracket wasn't too shabby either. So don't be talking about bad brackets. All right, yours wasn't that great either. All right. Let me say this real quick so we can transition to Justin real quick. All right, I want to congratulate Justin on 2 things because I know he wants to talk about both of them.
Yeah, let's give him a few minutes on the Nets before we get out of here. Yeah.
Number 1, congratulations to your Nets on making the playoffs. They're going to be in as the 6th seed. They're going to play Philly, which is against James Harden. All right, so that's going to be interesting. But I think more importantly for Justin, we got to congratulate him on this. The Dallas Mavericks are eliminated from the playoffs. All right, Kyrie Irving is not participating. So I'd like to congratulate you on that.
Did I not say that they were going to crash and burn? This
was epic, though. This was an epic burn.
Kyrie Irving crashes and burns everywhere we go. I just did not expect it to be this quick. I will say that. I did not expect it to be this quick. What I thought would happen was things would be just good enough this year that he re-signs, and then things start crashing and burning. And now Kyrie's got that big contract attached to him. It crashed a bit worse than I thought it would, and it's glorious. So the Mavericks not making the playoffs is just incredible.
And that's kind of held fort. I mean, you know what? They kind of stayed above water the whole time. And
listen, things were a little bit rough early on for the Nets, and yes, I'm very happy that the Nets are in the postseason, not just the play-in. And they were able to hold off as the 6th seed. Because, they were amidst of playing some great basketball, and then Durant gets hurt, and then, next thing you know, that him and Irving are getting traded at the deadline, and all of a sudden it felt like a new roster having to just piece itself together one by one, with like 25 games to go, and it was really it's a testament to Jacque Vaughn, and you know what? I don't think he'll get the award, but how could you not give Jacque Vaughn consideration for Coach of the Year? I mean, just holding everything together with all the crap that he's been put through. It's just impressive. It's very deserving for the Nets, and they found a star. It's going to be Mikal Bridges. He's a tremendous basketball player.
I mean, this guy is averaging 27, 28 points a game.
He's been absolutely tremendous. And
Dinwiddie's played really well for them again. Dinwiddie, it's almost like he didn't miss a beat here when he was there.
Dinwiddie's had some nights where he's been pretty off, but overall, Spencer Dinwiddie's been tremendous. Nick Claxton, a tremendous rim protector. Had a double-double tonight against the who did they play? They played Orlando. Played Orlando. And you're just seeing the pieces coming together. Now, look, they're playing Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference for a reason. They're a tremendous bunch. Joel Embiid's unstoppable. As good as Claxton's been defensively, there's just no matchup for Joel Embiid. And I know that they're
And
not
most points as a center he has scored since Shaquille O'Neal in 2000. I mean, I didn't realize it had been that long.
I personally would put him as number 1 for the MVP, Joel Embiid. The writers may vote Jokic again, which,
Yeah,
I guess, but Embiid's just been so impressive that I would give him the MVP.
it's a tough one.
The Nets could maybe win 2 games of the series, but they're not winning the series. They're not. They're losing in 6.
But you know what? You got to give them credit, though. They stayed above the play-in, and they played about 500, I think, since they let go of Durant and Irving. And I would even argue that,
and there's going to be more time next year to build on things. There's a lot of guys who are still under contract for multiple years. There's going to be a lot to build on, and I think the Nets, as bad as the Durant and Irving era ended up, they're set up for very, very good future, especially with guys like Bridges.
It reminds me almost when the Yankees had made those trades in 2016 with I think it was Beltran, Chapman, and then all of a sudden they turned around right away and were able to compete on the fly.
Yeah,
and maybe
almost.
the Nets
And
it's the same thing.
And it's a complete 180. And now I know all of this has been on Sean Marks because Sean Marks had to rebuild a team burned to the ground by Billy King. And that's the complete 180 that the Nets have done here. When the Nets ended up getting rid of Pearson, Garnett, and all of that because of that debacle, they were left with nothing.
That was painful. Painful.
The Nets
that
were
was
able
a
to at least
period.
recoup some draft picks. They were able to get some really good pieces like Bridges, like Johnson. Dorian Finney-Smith has been pretty good too. Spencer Dinwiddie coming back to a team that he's familiar with. They brought in good pieces, and they have good pieces set up for the future. So the future looks bright for the Nets. And you know what? If you lose to the Sixers, no shame. Honestly,
No, absolutely. No,
I
I
see no shame in it. And you know what? It's hard to say you're playing with the house money in the postseason, but the Nets are as close to that as you can get right now.
Hey, you know what? I mean, for them to have been able to hold serve and make the playoffs, well, Dallas doesn't even make the play-in, and I mean, considering what this team has went through, this franchise has went through, a lot of doubters to be able to at least be in a position of competition, it's certainly a good sign. And obviously, in New York, before I get to comments and the closing thoughts, you have a possibility of almost all of the New York teams, I guess, if some might say, with the exception of the Jets, depending on your geographic boundaries, had the opportunity to make the playoffs. You got the Knicks, you got the Rangers, you got the Nets, obviously, the Islanders, hopefully hanging there, Mets, Yankees, and there's certainly a lot of good times in New York. A couple of years ago, Brad, I remember being on the show, and New York, we don't win anything. We can't even make the playoffs. But yet now we got all these teams.
The Islanders, though, they're hanging by a thread right now.
It's going to be, that's a real coin toss.
That is a hairy situation. Although, I got to be honest, if I'm picking 2 teams out of the 3, because I know it's down to 3 teams. I know it's between the Islanders, Penguins, and Panthers. To me, it's the Penguins that I think are going to fall off.
I think it's the Panthers and it's the Islanders.
I saw a team on Tuesday night against New Jersey. They're
embarrassing.
Slow, they're old. Their goaltending sucks.
The only thing that might save the Penguins is, and I'll let Billy talk about it for a second, is Florida's got Toronto and Carolina. That's the only thing that might maybe push Pittsburgh in. What do you think there, Billy?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the Penguins schedule right now. I mean, Florida, the Penguins have Detroit, Chicago, and Columbus left, so that
they should go 3-0.
Islanders have Flyers, Capitals, Canadians. Panthers have Capitals, Maple Leafs, and Hurricanes. Maple Leafs, Hurricanes, both at home.
The Panthers have the only tough schedule there. The one thing that might help them is Toronto is probably at this point just playing out the stretch.
Which is what Randy said when we were on the show.
Carolina, it'll depend a lot on, not for nothing. Carolina will depend a lot on what the Devils have done by them, what they've done by them. If they have the top seed locked up, The one thing I'll say for the Panthers against the Hurricanes, they're not a terrible matchup for the Hurricanes because they can light the lamp, and the Hurricanes are not a team that I think really trusts their goaltending. So I think the Panthers have a better shot against Hurricanes than either the Islanders or the Penguins would.
I think both the Islanders and Penguins, honestly, I know Chris might get mad. I think they're both one and dones. I just don't think the Islanders.
I agree.
Barzal is out.
The Islanders aren't getting past
The Islanders
Boston.
are not
right?
going in
I will
there
say-
and beating the Bruins. It's just-
I will say, if it's Hurricanes Islanders in the first round, I give the Islanders more than a puncher's chance to win
yeah,
this series.
they're a tough
To
matchup for the
me,
Hurricanes.
and I've said it the last couple of weeks, the Hurricanes don't scare me.
No,
But it's also why, even though I know we've been talking about Rangers Devils for the longest time, I still think Devils could chase the Canes down here.
Well, I was gonna say, Billy. I mean, just very quickly, because we have Justin and Billy, and you have a Ranger fan and a Devil fan here. I mean, you guys, if it is Rangers Devils, are you going to be able to exist and coexist?
Hey, you know my feelings on the Rangers.
sports is better when rivals play in the playoffs. That's really.
I think the Rangers and Devils have a history, and those teams when they play. I know there was talk about the Islanders and Devils, and the Islanders and Devils have only played once, 1988.
Yeah, we
But
talked
the
about that.
Rangers and Devils have a long storied playoff history between those two teams. That's always interesting when they face off.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You had the 2012 Stanley Cup, the
Conference
Eastern
Finals.
Conference Finals. You had the 08-09. I think it was
2006, right, was the first round, right? 2006. We
Yep.
had
But then,
92,
but then I think the
94.
next year, 07-08, actually, it was that the Rangers knocked out the Devils in the first round.
There was 1 year I think
We had 94 conference finals,
94
97
conference final.
97 round 2,
That was
92
the Rangers.
division finals, right? 2006 after the lockout.
That the Devils won.
Yeah,
And then we had the
I think the next year
2012
the Rangers
East
beat
Finals.
the Devils, and then 2012 was the conference finals when the Devils won. It would be epic, and it would be so sad to see those two teams match up in the first round because both teams
the
deserve.
matchup's going to happen. It's just a matter of whether it happens first round or second round. I
know. To me, as I would love to win the division because I would love to jump the Hurricanes, but I would also love to see that as would feel better as a second round matchup as opposed to a first round matchup, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, geographically, actually, believe it or not, the Rangers and Devils, I actually think more makes sense geographically than the Islanders and Rangers. But that's a different point. We'll see. Obviously, we'll see if the Islanders can hang on. The Islanders they have the Flyers tomorrow at UBS. They have the Capitals Monday, and they have Montreal on Wednesday. Which I will say that I always do feel a little bit scared of playing teams that have nothing to play for because you just never know what's going to happen there.
So Carolina has the oddity because they have 4 games to go because they play a back-to-back Monday and Tuesday against Ottawa and Detroit, and they're playing Buffalo tomorrow, and that's no picnic.
And Buffalo's mathematically still technically alive, right? Technically,
they are, and their scoring and speed is pretty insane.
Well, yesterday they blew a big lead and still win, so that shows you.
Buffalo. You know what? Buffalo is going to be good, right? They're on the cusp of being a very good hockey team. They almost remind me of the Devils of last year, except they've performed better with more points. The Devils had decent offensive numbers last year, 0 goaltending. It feels like the Sabres can figure out their goaltending. They're going to be special. Like that's how.
Well, maybe even we get a day which it has happened before. And before we move to closing thoughts, where the Rangers, Islanders, Devils, and Sabres make the playoffs. I mean, it has happened before. It doesn't happen too often. It's happened a couple of times in local history, but that would be kind of a fun point. But before we move on to your closing thoughts, and maybe we'll talk more NHL next week here. Anthony Finkel says, Brute, don't pick the Knicks. It's the kiss of death, Cavs in 6, with a kind of emoji there. Jim Dolan just had a heart attack. Well, Jim Dolan, I just read the New York Post is getting sued, so he might have other issues to worry about.
He's been getting sued for like 10 years.
Well, true.
Lawyers are banned from MSG now.
I was going to say, who isn't banned at this point? I'm surprised, Brad, you aren't banned from MSG.
I'm good. I'm doing just fine. I'm good.
I'm sure Coach Tartamel is probably helping just a little bit, I think, with that maybe, especially just maybe.
Yeah.
Fink put down the bottle. I'm going to certainly plead the fifth on that one. The Kyrie Irving effect with the thumbs down. The Mavs did more than crash and burn. I love it. Shout out to the new Rocky, Joey Bostrom. Joey Bostrom says thank you. Did Rob and the Brute Force go shopping together? Look at those orange Met shirts. Yeah, did you guys plan this together to wear the same Met gear? One guy's got the sweater, the other guy's got the T-shirt. I guess you guys both went to maybe the MLB team store.
Hey, you know what? You know what, Rob? Maybe we did. Let's let John
That's
Gonzalez. Let's get John Gonzalez to speculate with his sources, and let's see if he finds out.
Well, I
That's
mean,
right.
we'll certainly, I'm sure, talk a lot about this during the week. And of course, I want to give a shout out to John Gonzalez. You can follow him again at the Sports Authorities group on Facebook and join his page. So we definitely ran the gauntlet. We have talked a lot here on Sportswire Radio. There pretty much isn't anything we left out. Maybe Masters, but there's only so much we can do time-wise, but maybe Justin will throw that out in the closing thoughts. So let's go. Billy, I want to go with you first. Obviously, hope to have you more often. Obviously, we get ready for the NHL playoffs. Rangers, Devils, first round. Could be fun. Randy Dillon, I know, spoke and I a little bit about that when he was on. So I want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and hope that you won't be a stranger and you'll join us here more often. And fire away, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone, for a great show. Catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. For closing thoughts, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but I just want to say from the Rangers perspective, I think the Hurricanes are a much better match than the Devils are in the first round. And I also want to talk a little bit about the Rangers' power play because Patrick Kane's missed the last 2 games with a lower body injury. And the top power play unit looks so much better without him. They put Vladimir Tarasenko on that unit, and it's been gelling. I think they need to keep it that way for the playoffs. I think, the top unit should feature Tarasenko. The second unit should feature Kane because Patrick Kane is not this is not 2012 Patrick Kane we're looking at here. He's a different player. He's not as effective. And more to the point, Tarasenko gives him another shooter on the top unit that, they need one with Zibanejad. Now they have 2 guys who can shoot and beat a goalie with a, quick shot that, Kane can't really do anymore. Panarin just doesn't want to do anymore. Fox is much more of a facilitator in that unit. So that's kind of where I think the Rangers are. And yeah, for the Mets, obviously Cody Sanger should pitch tomorrow, or I guess, later today now, technically, for those of us on the East Coast. Very curious to see what he does, especially facing the same team 2 times in a row. I'm very curious to see what adjustments he makes, what adjustments the Marlins make. And, we'll see. I need to see improvement from Scherzer this week. I need to see him put up a good game against the Padres. He has a long track record. I don't want to start counting him out yet, but I need to see him.
That's what I said last week with the Brute Force. That's what I said about Verlander. I'm worried. I'm already worried.
Yeah, Verlander, I want to see what he does when he comes back. Choosing to believe that this is mostly precautionary thing, him being out for a few weeks. We'll see. I want to see him do it when he comes back too. And both the guys are at an age where the wheels can come off at any time. And hopefully we don't see it happen this year, but can't rule it out.
We'll certainly see it. Everybody can follow Billy on Instagram at WMCINE. It sounds like a radio station almost there. WMCINE. So a good line there. Maybe it is out there. Who knows? John Gonzalez wants to say before he signs off, great show, guys. Glad to see the Brute back from the alligator farm in Florida, which is a thing I can confirm. Good to hear from you, Billy. I always agree. Billy, one of our favorites from the old Sports Report days. Good to see Billy doing well with us. Hopefully see you more often. So great stuff there. And Chris, want to give you the floor. Looking forward to playing the Liftoff Jets. I got Liftoff Jets and Talking Rivals in the show coming up here the weekend. I'm live a couple of times Sunday, so I look forward to using that as a bridge a few times. So I'll certainly use the break. We'll play you and Sharman, you and Patrick, and certainly kill some time so I can warm up a little bit and cool down from my explosive segments ahead on Sunday. So want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say? Floor is yours, and fire away, my friend.
Guys, great show. Tom, thank you for everything. It's going to be an interesting series with the Yankees and the Orioles. I'm actually going to tomorrow night's game, so I'll be there.
Oh, wow.
Camden Yards, so should be fun.
Very cool.
Hopefully we'll get a win, but they got a kind of a rough stretch after this. After that, they go to Cleveland, then they come home to play Minnesota, and then they finish up the month. You got the Angels, you got Toronto, Twins again, Texas. So it's going to be a rough month, and they got to get through it, and it's going to show, how tough this team is early on. But I still think there's going to be a lot of changes, just like with the Mets. Like, it just doesn't feel right what's going on with both teams. Not that it's bad, but I just feel like there's going to be changes. Like, I see guys like with the Yankees, you got Peraza in AAA. He's done everything in AAA. He's proven himself. There's no reason for him to be there. He came up late last year. He had a pretty good couple of weeks. There's no reason for him to be in AAA, right? Just like with you guys. You got Beatty, you got Vientos, and you got, Alvarez is up now. But those guys don't belong in AAA. They've done enough. They've proven themselves. So it's either, I don't want to say it in a bad way, but it's poop or get off the pot, basically, right? It's you got to either use them or either bring them up or use them in some kind of a trade to get something that you need. I think that's what's going to happen with some of these guys. That's why I see moves happening, either bringing them up or trading them at some point. So, yeah, going from that to the Jets, I'm tired of talking about Aaron Rodgers. I just want this stupid thing to happen already. Today, it's some radio function that they had. Joe Douglas was interviewed right on stage by Boomer and Gio, and basically he said, "Don't worry about it. Aaron will be here." So if he's saying that, yeah, if he's saying that on stage in front of people, I'm assuming that the deal is pretty close. So I'm thinking it's going to happen this week. It's got to happen soon because the trade's coming up in a couple of weeks, and you would think both teams want to know what picks they're getting, whatever.
Right.
So, so that'll be interesting. So hopefully by the time we record again on Wednesday or Thursday, Sharman and I will be able to talk about the trade and how we're going to go forward. So looking forward to that. So you could catch me on Twitter at CP7NY. You can catch at Talking Rivals, at Liftoff Jets, and we'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. Happy Easter. Safe travels down there for the drive to Baltimore. Hopefully you get a nice game, get a good win. Always like to go on the road and get a win, especially in that ballpark. So we'll certainly be pulling for you there as well for that. So Rob Marasco, I want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and floor is yours, my friend.
Great show, guys. Enjoyed it as usual. Want to congratulate the winners of the contest again, Robert Silver of Salem, Massachusetts, and Brian Becker of Hempstead, Long Island. Congratulations. There's going to be more contests throughout the whole season, so check it out on Twitter, Facebook, and listen to Sportzwire Radio live on Friday nights. And Brute, we got to talk about the color we're going to wear next week on next week's show, all right? So I don't want John Gonzalez to know beforehand. And also one last thing about the Mets. I'm looking forward to seeing how Senga pitches in front of the home crowd tomorrow. So you could catch me on Twitter at R. Maraska and Facebook at Rob Maraska. Great show, guys.
Absolutely great stuff there. Congratulations to those winners again. Some local, some outside the tri-state area, but we certainly thank them for their support. Also wanted to shout out San Diego Padres fan Anastasia Riznia, I believe it is, and she has signed off. She appreciated the good wishes, so great stuff there. So thank you, Rob Maraska and Justin Gianelli. I'm going to give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and floor is yours, my friend, and fire away.
Yeah, Tom, good to be back. I know I was not here last week, but good to be back on once again. Yeah, like Rob said, looking forward to see what Senga does in front of the home crowd. Also, like even Billy said, facing the same opponent twice. We had that same thing with McGill, facing the Marlins in the first series as well. So it definitely will be interesting to see what kind of adjustments he can make, what kind of adjustments the Marlins can make, and how he ends up pitching to that. I did want to touch a little bit on the Devils. They got a big matchup tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins. I can't remember many matchups between two 50-plus win teams. I know we're right towards the end of the season, so not all that often that you get that. But obviously, a win for the Bruins and that ties an NHL record 62 if they were to win. And if the Devils win, it would tie their franchise record for 51 wins. The 08-09 team, the only other Devils team to win 50 games in franchise history. So
I didn't realize that because they had some really good teams for a long time.
It's
I didn't realize
you know what it is surprising because then I kept thinking back to 2000 2001, right?
Yep.
That's the team that has the record for most points in Devils history, but they won 48 games that year. They didn't quite get to 50. And this team, it's funny. This team this year has more points than the team that won 51 games in 08-09 because the Devils had 107 points that year, and the Devils have, I think, 108 right now. So it's definitely one of the best seasons in franchise history. Jack Hughes is 1 point away from tying Patrick Elias's franchise record, 96 points.
Which Randy and I referenced, and that's so fascinating. The Devils have never had a
100-point score, and I would say they got a shot. I mean, with the way Jack Hughes can rack up points, I would say they got a shot. You had the hat trick the other night from Dawson Mercer as well. Timo Meyer's heated up. Nico Hischier is closing in on 80 points. So it's just been a tremendous season for the Devils. And, as opposed to 5 years ago when the Devils rode the back of Taylor Hall, who had 93 points that year, to the Hart Trophy. And I know Jack Hughes isn't going to win the Hart Trophy because it's going to be McDavid, and it should be McDavid. He's having a season for the ages, something like we've never seen in a very long time. This feels like this is the beginning of hopefully a decade run of great Devils hockey. Because there are just so many pieces, and there's a lot of pieces that are under contract for a very long time. So I feel like instead of a 1 year fluke like 17-18, I think this is the beginning of a very long run for the New Jersey Devils. And it's great. As somebody who grew up being able to see 2 Stanley Cups at the age of 8 and the age of 11, it was great as a child, but now, as I get older, I've waited 20 years for this team to win another Stanley Cup. Not saying they're going to win it this year. I don't know anybody's beating Boston, but I can't help but think about the fact that this group has an absolute chance to put a Stanley Cup on the board at some point in the near future. So very, very pumped about that. I'll be back with the baseball banter this week. Probably record midweek or so. So we'll be back with that. You can follow me on Twitter at JGNLE12.
Excellent stuff. And yeah, I think about you and my friend Daniel Slavin, who was basically, I think, conceived in the old Brendan Byrne Meadowlands Arena there. His family was season ticket holders way back in those early Stanley Cups in 2000 and 2003, 2001. They get to the Cup finals and special run there. But it's been a long time since the Devils have had a real shot and a chance to maybe go deep into the postseason. We'll see if this year is the year. But good times are ahead there for the Devil fans like yourself and Daniel. But we didn't certainly save the best for last, but we saved the biggest for last. I know a lot of congratulatory thoughts will be in this one for the Brute Force Brad Weiss. We'll maybe preview a couple of great guests ahead for us here when we return together for some college basketball coverage. A lot of college basketball guests actually we have ahead here. Some of them you're going to be on with me. Some of them I'm doing solo. I'll explain when I get my chance at the floor. But before then, we certainly give the Brute Force the floor and also a happy birthday wish to the Gentle Force. I know will be thrown in there as well. So the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, you know the drill at this point. The floor is yours. Fire away.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of Friday Night Live here on the Sports Report. Thank you, Rob, Billy, Chris, Justin, of course, Randy Dillon as well, and of course, John Gonzalez as well, and all the rest of our supporters. We love you, John, even though you messed with me all show. We love you. And we love the rest of our supporters. So thank you to everyone who watched and supports us every week. You can follow me on social media at BWeiss20 and at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, at Brad Weiss20 on Twitter, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. So I'm going to get right to it, Tom Bryce, because we're going right to it basically right after this, because we're getting ready on Monday to bring back the legendary Gordon Scheuer, all right, who's going to come on after our great interview with Matt Hurd, which, by the way, has gotten incredible feedback from many around me. Have watched the show and said they enjoyed it, they loved it. So I'm really looking forward to Gordon. He's got plenty of impersonations to show us. And talk about the show. And he's got a lot of great basketball to certainly talk about, whether it's through his playing career, what he's doing now. I'm really excited to hear about that and much more. So I'm very excited to listen to Gordon. He was great the first time he came on for our preview show. Now I'm looking forward to hearing him with his own interview, kind of talking more about his career and what he did and what he's looking forward to doing. So I'm really excited to hear from Gordon and be on that show. That's Monday night at 8:30. So be sure to tune in live on the Sportswire Radio. And then this one is going to be epic, all right? Because I think this one's going to do really well, and that is Jesse Winter. All right,
Jesse Winter, big. This is a big one. If you know anything about basketball,
whatever you want to call him, owner, manager, CEO. He's the guy that made Level Up. You guys are going to hear kind of how that went through, how he started Level Up, which is very similar to Matt Hurt's story. You guys are going to hear it's very similar, the way they started their programs. Jesse will also talk about, obviously, his great career at Cortland. His great career
professionally in Israel, by the way. Have to talk about that.
Yep, definitely. Southside, where he was one of the best players there. So he had a decorated career. Now he's doing a great job with Level Up, obviously.
And you failed to mention that he was the all-time leading scorer in Cortland Red Dragons history up until literally about 2 months ago. You failed to bring that up.
All right. Well, I'm saving that for Thursday. They can tune in on Thursday. All right. So Thursday at 8:30, we'll obviously have plenty of people tune in, whether it's players from Level Up, parents from Level Up. All these different people want to hear from Jesse and his interview. It's been a long time coming, so we're really looking forward to that. I know Jesse is as well. So looking forward to that interview with a guy who I really have a lot of appreciation for, because not only does he obviously employ me with Level Up, but he's also a guy I've gotten to learn from and deals with a lot of my issues. So I want to thank him for that as well, always. So I'm looking forward to Jesse Winter on the show. But I'm going to use a Tom Bryce line for a second. All right. We certainly didn't save the best for last, because he can't beat me one-on-one. But we certainly saved the shortest for last. All right. But I don't want to be too, because this is his moment. All right. And I'm referring to James DeSimone. All right.
Yep.
All right, because listen, this is a monumental moment for me, for him, because obviously for him, he's going to be playing at Misericordia University next year in Pennsylvania. He committed to go there and play Division III basketball. I am extremely proud. For me, this is my first player in my young coaching career, through my training and through my coaching, that I have a player who I've trained and gotten to work with so much, and he's going to play college basketball. So it makes me proud as a trainer, as his coach, as a mentor, to see one of my players take the next step at the college level. I'm extremely proud of James. I'm not going to let myself get emotional about it, but he is the epitome of hard work, dedication, and love for the game of basketball. He's one of the best players I've ever seen play at the high school level here on Long Island. He's just a great kid, a great player, and deserves everything that he's going to do when he proves everyone wrong. Because a lot of people that think, because he's short and because he's not this and not that he's not going to do well in college. But he's going to prove everybody wrong. He's going to prove them that he's going to go and play at the Division III level. He's going to be successful, and he's going to have a great career. So I'm really excited for him. I can't thank his parents and all the people who support me from his family enough, because they trusted me with their son to help him, guide him to a great high school and college career. And to see that happen, and now he gets to go and play, I can't be more proud and thankful that I had the opportunity to be a part of his life. So thank you to James. He also wants to come on the Sports Report and talk about it. So
we could definitely do that. I mean,
we're going to try to make that happen as well. So
we better get him now before he becomes a big shot.
I know. Listen, he's ready to become a big shot. He's now my assistant coach on some of my teams for Level Up. So he's getting bigger and bigger by the minute, and his head's probably getting bigger and bigger.
Well, I'm sure when we speak with Mr. Winter on Thursday, we'll sure to slip his name in there, and I'm sure that'll be the plan.
Well, James, and again, James played for Jesse and was on one of the most successful Level Up teams. I went to Florida and played the AAU championship. So
we could definitely talk about that. I mean, I think that Coach Winter would love to hear that.
Yeah, James has played for Jesse and been one of the more successful players in our Level Up program. So that definitely goes hand in hand. But again, I'm just so proud of James. He also very much supports our show.
I know he's been with us in comments, and he's definitely been somebody
He's
over the
always
past.
talking about what I have to say. He's very critical of some of the things I have to say. So I want to thank him and thank you guys, obviously, for another great week of the show. It was pretty cool, by the way, doing it from Miami last week. So that was a lot of fun. But I'm happy to be back. I'm happy that the weather was good on Thursday because I did get to get some sun again. But certainly not happy that the weather is going the wrong way. But it'll be back to very nice next week. So
the middle of the week's supposed to be beautiful here in New York. So thank God for that. Thank God.
Looking forward to that. And like you said, Tom, as you talk about it now, looking forward to the interview with Gordon, with Jesse, hopefully with James, and many more great college
I know
basketball
Kelly Dempsey
players.
also. We have to try to fit in Coach Dempsey. Unfortunately, the scheduling didn't work out, but I hope that we can maybe figure that out down the road. But obviously, shout outs to all those people. Also, happy belated birthday to the Gentle Force. Actually, it's one of the reasons why we couldn't do yesterday with Coach Dempsey, because I told Coach, I said, well, we can't do the interview without Brad, and it's your mother's birthday, and I wasn't going to say, hey, you want to do an interview? Yeah. So unfortunately, that's kind of how it goes in this business. But obviously, first, I want to congratulate James DeSimone. Obviously, somebody well-deserved in his hard work, and his hard work is paid off, and the fruits of his labor are going to pay off there in that college. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I'll let James, when he comes on in a couple of weeks, hopefully, we'll work on that, and I'll let him maybe coach me on pronouncing that. But definitely well-deserved. Congratulations to him. I want to make sure everybody also follows him on all the great things he does. James DeSimone here. That is James DeSimone _ on Instagram. Make sure you follow him, because I have a feeling that you're going to definitely see a lot more from him. And also Gordon, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Very excited about Gordon, his journey. I feel like he's one of those guys that was a lot better than his stats would indicate. His story, his father also coaching on Long Island. I want to talk about his father also in his background, and certainly Thursday with Jesse Winter, professional basketball player. You think about really a guy that had quite a journey. Cortland here on Long Island dominates, goes to Cortland, scores 1,500 plus points, and scores. And we're in fact on a team that won a game in the NCAA tournament. That team he played on in Cortland really was one of the better teams that Coach Spanbauer had. I want to talk about Coach Spanbauer, his journey there, playing in Israel and being really, again, one of the more better, I think, Jewish basketball players on Long Island. Kind of gets lost in the shuffle with Jesse. I want to talk about that with him as well. And obviously, Level Up. Hopefully, he has some funny stories about you. Love to share those on the air.
Oh, he definitely does.
Well, we're going to talk about that. Very excited about that. Also want to announce before we get out of here, April 18th, actually, Brad, have a show coming up next Tuesday. So this Tuesday, we're with, obviously, solo by myself, but then we're going to be also with Jesse on Thursday. Thursday night, I believe we said 8:30 on Thursday. Monday night, 8:30. And then Tuesday, the 18th, we're with Divine Chisholm from York. The Cardinals, I know a guy you know very well, scored 1,000 points this past season. We're going to talk with Divine about his story, his journey at York and the program. Coach Gist, obviously somebody you know very well. We spoke about him many times, had him on many times on Sportswire. So want to talk with Divine and his story. He's a big fan of ours, listens to you also, another basketball disciple of yours that always asks me about what's going on with Brad Weiss. What did Brad Weiss say? So excited about Divine Chills. I want to make sure everybody follows him also on Instagram. You can do that at his @Vine. That is very simple. It's straight to the point. You can do that at I am Vine 2. So I am Vine 2 on Instagram. Make sure you follow him. Also, I have a guy coming on next Sunday. I don't know if you know him, but he's got an interesting story from Israel, playing in Minnesota, coming up here for college basketball. And his name is Arik Kotovsky. Arik Kotovsky actually heard, I guess, one of your clips and said, hey, would you fancy doing an interview? And I had heard the name before because he had a few mutual contacts. And I said, sure, why not? We'll do a segment with him. That is next Sunday night coming up here. So very, very excited to see what his story is. So we'll get a chance to hear a little bit about I think it's Arik Kotovsky. So very, very excited about that. And then also we're going to have on next Friday, I think, is opening up for us the New York Harlem Underdogs. I won't even go through how many players that we have on, but it's a whole litany of Coach D has wanted to get a chance to speak with some of the different players. So we're going to do that here on Sportswire very, very soon. So looking forward to that. So a lot to announce. We'll do more proper announcements with that, but it is late here in New York and certainly in the UK. So Sunday on tomorrow's show, I'll have Firestar Pro Wrestling and WCE coverage. But in the meantime, we were joined by Billy McInerney, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter, Chris Bezea, Talking Rivals, Liftoff Jets, Safe Travels to you in Baltimore, Rob Maraska, contest guy at this point. The man we'll see Monday, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, of course, the legendary SJLI Golden Eagle, also coach for the Level Up Basketball Organization, Long Island Nets, if that's still a thing, with the Brew Crew as well. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. But if you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I'll be back twice, 2:30 p.m., 7:30 p.m. British Standard Time, Firestar Pro Wrestling, and then 10 p.m., 9 p.m. Central Time with WCE's Craven Rage and Killer Rabbit. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Good night. Happy Easter. Be well. And we'll be in touch on the number one Global